G'day Fledgens, Namu here for Barrel Surf Podcast. This week, Adzy and I catch up with West Oz photography icon Leith Holtzman. Over a storied career, Holtzy has swung from his passion behind the lens to commentating some of the biggest crusty demon-style motocross events on the planet. Now Holtzy is about to release his first novel. Let me tell you, it is going to be sick. Listen in for details and check socials in the coming weeks. Got to say thanks to our sponsors and a big shout out to Adzy's Plumbing and Gas and Bunbury Home Loans, as well as our good friends at Down South Physio. We do have a huge live event coming up this week at Yahoo Surfboards, so check that out this Sunday. Now let's rip into the episode.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Yeehaw!
All right, Legends, we are back in the shedquarters. It has been a minute, but we are here. It is a sunny, beautiful afternoon. It is hot as buggery in the shedquarters, but absolutely stoked to be here on a delightful Sunday afternoon in the southwest. It is summer that keeps on giving, my friends, and as usual, to my right, Mr. Adam Kennedy. Hello, mates.
G'day, Namu. Good to be back in here. Feels like it's been a little while. Blistering Sunday afternoon. Seems like summer's dragging on a bit at the moment. Temperature-wise, supposed to be warm this week. And, but we're in here sweating it out. We have got Portugal on the TV in the background in the shedquarters on silence. So we'll... just to keep us all entertained, but we won't be looking that way as much. We'll be more looking towards our frothing, curly-headed friend to the right of me on the couch here, who's he's been around the surf culture as long as some Portuguese buildings have been looking out to sea in the Atlantic Ocean, I would imagine. He's
making sardines forever, and this man's been around the scene forever as well.
Yeah,
they don't really make sardines, do they? They catch them.
Yeah. I'm making sardine tins. Mate, yes, he's been around Margie's a long time. He's a videographer of note, photographer back in the early days. He transitioned a lot into extreme sports, and he's just been on the scene for a very long time. And he's a surfer as well, obviously, and we're pretty stoked to get him. And he's actually got some pretty exciting news. That's something a little bit out of left field that we don't get every day in here. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that as well.
I am intrigued.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast, Leith Holtzman.
Thanks, gentlemen. Absolute pleasure to be here. And I'm part of the one of the, obviously, OG surf photographers, but I was also a roof plumber back in the day. So
did you notice all those fresh gutters sitting in the driveway there and that little gutterless section? Feel free, mate. Couple of cheeky monkeys.
I can see a gutterless section.
Continuing in the tradition of plumbing surf videographers from back in the day. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And, we're just doing a little tech stuff here in the background. Have you got your cans? You getting some sound through your cans?
I'm getting
there?
sound. It's just a little bit loud now for me.
All right. Do you want me to take it down a touch?
Yeah. Oh, hello.
There we go.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Voice on.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of roof plumbing. It's mate. You know, every good tube pig out there is. They've had to pay their way for a while there, haven't they, on the tools? So.
Yeah. The only trouble with roof plumbing is the good days for the roof are also the good days surfing.
I've always thought that, especially when you get into late autumn and winter especially.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we need to re-roof this or do that or get up on the roof. And it's like, mate, if it's not raining in winter down here, it's probably cooking surf.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's always a factor.
I did my head in. So, yeah, it was... I did it for a few years, but it was short-lived as well. So, yeah.
Well, mate, dial it back for us, Holtzy. Where did you sprout from, and what's your introduction to the ocean?
Yeah, born in Tom Price.
So
I think that's the first on the podcast.
I'm close to a Nalu local as far as that goes. I suppose.
Yeah, right. Within 500 k's, it's a local catchment area. Make it a Nalu primary school.
My old man was a pretty keen surfer. He got like third in the state schoolboys in the late 60s.
What's his name? What is his name?
Well,
Tom Price.
Peter Holtzman.
Peter Holtzman.
So he was part of the Bunbury crew, like Ron Carlson from Indiana, Surf and Sail, and all of those old school Bunbury crew.
Yeah. Right.
there's some classic old Super 8 footage of me like running around in diapers at Jake's Point.
Is there?
And that sort of thing. But he sort of gave up surfing before I took it up. But like I went to the Bluff. My first trip to the Bluff was 1981. And when we rocked up, there was literally not a person and not even 2 bits of wood nailed together there. And I actually went to school in the cave at the Bluff as a 9-year-old.
Really? They had classes in the cave?
Well, I did. I was like, It was like school of the road. So the plan was to go around Australia. So we jumped in the back of the old man's panel van.
Yeah.
So I lived in the cave at the Bluff for, I don't know, maybe a month. And that was my schoolroom. I remember waking up one night with a turtle laying eggs next to me and
Wow, that's
all that
cool.
sort of stuff. Like I said, there was literally no one there. We rocked up at the Bluff.
And this is how turtles have babies.
Like classes on, quick, midnight class.
Yeah. So
Got biology.
I wasn't surfing at that stage. I do remember jumping in the water, diving with the old man and stuff. And I did do a little. We got to Broome after that, and the old man ended up being a pearl diver on a pearl boat for a few years, and then he was a skipper for a few years after that. So Cable Beach was kind of my first surfing experience. But then I ended up living with my mum down in Denmark from when I was 12.
Oh, right.
So that's where I actually really learnt to surf. And at that stage down there, it was all farmers, and surfing was the most uncool thing you could do.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Full stop. There was me and a mate. Actually, a guy you might know, Kim Cracknell.
Yeah, crackers.
Yeah,
Mate,
Can I just mention?
hold on. Yeah, go, Namu, please.
If you're looking for like the sickest surfboard wax you can possibly find, Dr. Crack Wax, let me tell you. Kimmy's given us a couple of blocks, and the wax is unbelievable.
Yeah, mate. We're well overdue to give Crackers a shout out. He's
okay. Well, there you go.
Well, we'll give you a couple of blocks.
Right on cue.
Yeah, right on cue.
Yeah.
Crackers, Dr. Crack Surf Wax.
Yeah.
Mate, he's a chemist. He's a legit scientist. He has formulated the best quality wax you can get, made here in the Southwest. Organic packaging, I believe, resealable little packets and environmental friendly. Get around Dr. Crack Wax.
Hexagonal shape, so you got 6 different edges to actually wax your board with as well. I mean, he's thought about it. I saw him in the waves the other day, and he was saying sort of 3 years in the making, Dr. Crack Wax, and he's on top of it,
mate. And every single wax brand out there, what is with wax and sexual innuendo? It's just like, mate, sex wax, Mrs. Palmer's, green stuff.
Yeah. Green stuff.
Mate,
it's
every
drugs
single
or sex, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I suppose that's surfing, isn't it?
Yeah. And Dr. Crack's really following suit there, isn't he? So.
Well, yeah, he's Cracknell though, so.
I know, but it was luck. But anyway, mate, sorry, we hadn't given him a plug yet, and he's given us heaps of wax, so that was just, we couldn't go past that one.
No, pleasure to.
Yeah. Was he down there with you?
He turned up in Denmark. His dad was deputy principal. And so he kind of made surfing cool in Denmark. So me and a mate had just started. We were uncool. But Kim was like this good-looking kid. He had this bright pink hot brews, like 5.5 hot brews surfboard. He surfed really good.
No way.
And so suddenly surfing was cool.
Wow.
And Chris Shanahan was at that school at that stage. He was a couple of years younger.
Yep.
And so then as a group,
broken board in Portugal. Sorry, mate, I've just got a broken board there. Looks like
Felipe
Toledo.
It's no sweeter thing to see, is there?
Took off in a wave over 3 foot and broke his board.
Felipe. He knows he's a nice guy. If he doesn't charge, it's like...
How good is it? It seems struggling with the broken board there. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, anyway, he kind of made surfing cool down there, and so that's where from then on, surfing became the big thing. And it was really interesting for anyone that's read Breath, the Tim Winton book.
Yep.
Yeah, how cool.
I rang my mate after that and said, mate, you got to read this book. It's you and me. It was actually like reading my biography. So him and I, we were the sort of kids just obsessed. Like I was all white blonde hair and cheeky little fucker, and he was the, the more sort of stealth guy with the darker hair and stuff. And we had a guy like Sando or whatever out near the...
Who was the Sando?
His name was Dave Tyler or something like that. He was this blonde-haired dude. He was really cool. And we had our boards out near there. Like I lived 17 k's from the coast.
Yeah.
And my mate was kind of similar but in a different direction.
Fuck.
But he had a grandma a bit closer, so we kind of somehow we get ourselves to the beach every weekend. I used to literally ride that 34k round trip a few times.
Fuck,
boards and shit, especially to go
It's not
fishing.
flat country there either.
No, there was 3 or 4 big hills between my place and the beach.
Oh.
And I mean, I when I think about how fit I was back then, it's crazy. When I think of some of the things that we used to do. But you know, I'd go down there fishing and then come back. I'd have like a salmon strapped between my legs on the bike, one across the bars.
No way.
And then one in the backpack or something.
Really?
Like any way to get your fish home and stuff.
Classic.
You know, so yeah, that was really, really important, that stage. That sort of got us right into it. And it was funny because back then, Chris Shano was like, he was this little kid and he was kind of scared of like 2-footers sort of thing. And I didn't see him again until years later at Nalu, my first trip to Nalu. And he rocked up and I'd been there for a month or two and I was like, oh yeah, no, I'll show you how it goes kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he just was already like, yeah, him and those boys, like that, or a whole bunch of Albany guys were up there.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were charging. It's like, I just thought he was still that kid that was scared of 2-footers, but yeah, he was already into the lunatic stage by then, which I never achieved. That was definitely not my thing. But
So down in Denmark, who was the the bag over the head and all that sort of stuff from Breath?
Yeah,
Did you have that chick?
Up until that point in the book, it was like reading the biography.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Didn't get
I
that
was
lucky?
the smallest kid in class, and I had massive buck teeth. So girls were not a thing for me. Like, Mum was actually worried that because me and my mate would talk so much, we'd spend all day together and then talk over the phone.
Oh, right.
She was actually worried that it might be swinging the other way, but it was no. The girls were always most of what our conversation was, but they just weren't in my realm. But Tim used to do all right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned that book because when you were saying, we went to Denmark and it was farmers and it was young, cool, I was actually thinking of that book in my head and I was almost going to say something, then you said it anyway. I reckon it's the best surf movie ever made.
Yeah.
That's like I've said it before on this potty.
Do you know what? I haven't seen it.
What?
I know.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I was
And you
saying
haven't
that
read the
last
book
night.
either?
I read the book, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the best thing they did is that they got surfers and turned them into actors rather than the other way.
And mate, there's some of the waves in there are fucking mental, proper hell bombies, you know.
Yeah.
And then I guess it resonates with West Aussies a bit more too because we can relate and we know where it's set and all that sort of stuff. But as far as like a realistic,
well, they actually
plot,
filmed it at the spots that he described too.
Yeah,
so
that's right,
That's
exactly.
what gives it that authenticity.
yeah, mate, it's such a cool when you compare it to, North Shore and all these other movies, Point Break and that, where it,
Oh my God, Italy, that was so nuts. Sorry,
that's all right. Oh, that was always going to happen when we put it on in the background.
A bit of wind and look at this. Look how high it is.
Oh, that's
that is
big
nuts.
one. Yes.
Hi guys, I'm Italo Ferreira. You guys listen to Barrel Surf podcast and enjoy.
I'll tell you what, it's winter time in the southwest of Western Australia, as it is in a lot of places in the southern hemisphere. Perfect time for a glass of red wine from our friends at Forester Estate. Oh, Adz Kennedy, look at you, mate. What have you got in your hot little hand right there?
Well, it's my cold little hand because it's winter, and nothing better in winter than a good, honest stout. Cheeky Monkeys limited release stout, mate. I don't know. I just love stout in winter. I swear I could have one for breakfast if I had to.
Like a warm embrace.
It is. Get it around it. If you're up at the VAS facility, 10% off if you mention Barrel Surf Podcasts. Yeah, Cheeky Monkeys.
Excuse me, mate. I'm looking for a premium wetsuit that's going to keep me warm and is as stretchy as can be. What would you recommend, Adzy?
Well, you obviously got to get your mitts on a Shark Eyes wetsuit, mate. They are definitely in the premium range of wetsuits. We've been running them for well over a year now. We've got a couple. You got the 3.3, which feels like a bloody 2.2, and then you got
Buttery.
the 4.3 with a built-in hood that is just so good
Also
on these
buttery.
crispy offshore winter mornings, mate. I love them. I come in with smooth balls every time. That's what the rumours are.
Yeah, Shark Eyes wetsuits, keeping us warm, flexibility included, and Adzy's smooth balls.
It's just, when you're looking at Point Break and North Shore and all that, and how they were iconic for being so cheesy, and that's sort of what made them good, whereas there's nothing cheesy about Breath. That's actually...
Takes off natural, and it's offshore. Next shot is goofy, and it's onshore.
Whereas Breath was just so realistic and so underground. It was, I reckon it's best surf movie ever.
Yeah, I was sort of disappointed. Like, Tim writes a lot of... His stuff's quite dark.
Yeah.
So when it went down that dark path, it to me, it felt like it took from the book. But the movie just seemed to capture it really well.
Do you know what? When I was reading it, I was thinking, do you remember that movie? I think it was a Tarantino one, Dusk Till Dawn, when it was just like a road trip movie, and then it turned into halfway through just went vampire.
Yeah, yep.
It was, to me, it was a bit like that. It was like just a nostalgic surf film, and then all of a sudden, chokity and all the rest of it.
It seemed a bit
We do
out
have
of
a few
place.
kids that listen to this, so we won't go too far with that.
The rest of the movie was pretty normal. It was just the plastic bag, wasn't it? Really, just everyone was like, I did not see that coming.
Well, there we go.
So after Denmark, I actually moved to Bunbury, and because that's where the old man was living at the time. And I actually, funnily enough, I had a choice when I first went to senior high in Bunbury, was either photography or accounting. I had to choose one of the two, and I chose accounting because that's what the old man told me I should do.
Yeah,
safe options.
Yeah, and I ended up actually doing a degree in tax accounting, and the one thing I learnt in that was that I didn't want to be a tax accountant.
Yeah, no shit.
Well, Holtzy, I need my 2024s done, mate. So let's.
I wouldn't be asking me to do it. That was a long time ago. But through all that time, I'm surfing all the time, and it was really hard to actually be in those classes. And the accounting teacher would tell an accounting joke, and everyone would laugh, and I'd just be sitting there going, "Fucking kidding me, aren't you?" Like, how am I going to deal with this sort of thing? Actually, Lucas Englert, Dave Englert's brother, was in the class with me. He got smart though. He only lasted the first term, and then he was gone and off being a DJ and whatever else.
DJ/wine rep.
Yeah, all the stuff that he did.
Mate, give us an insight to that early Denmark life. Is there did you get your first tube there, or your first bigger wave, or is there something memorable that you can give us from those early times?
I think I did get my first tube, but it wasn't particularly memorable. I mean, we were so hardcore. Like, I did that first winter. I don't even know whether I had a wetsuit or not. And the first wetty I got was actually one of those Gary Elton bright yellow smooth skin. Remember the smooth skin things?
I love the smooth skin.
Mine just fell apart.
Yeah, they did do that.
And so it was basically useless. And I actually did get a mild case of pneumonia at one stage down there.
Shouldn't laugh, but yeah.
Just because I was a skinny little kid.
Yeah.
Especially,
it's colder. It's definitely colder down there.
Yeah.
The ocean fluctuates a bit more down there because it doesn't get the Lewin current. Yeah. And then you've also got the inlet, with fresh water.
Ice cream headaches when that thing
it can
opened.
be proper
cold.
cold.
That was proper cold.
Yeah.
I was down there for 1988, which I'd moved away, but I just happened to be down there. And that's the year that they talk about. 88, mate. Like, so how in that spot, whatever spot you are in the world, there's the year where it was like best evers.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, for Denmark, it's 1988.
Is it? I never knew that.
I was there for that.
Yeah, bicentennial year.
Yeah.
And
G'day from WA. Is that the same one? No.
Might have been.
Yeah.
What's that?
Bicentennial year. No, go on, mate. We're talking shit. Don't listen to us. Don't stop your stories because of us.
But that was kind of special because it's all about kind of the opening of the river mouth down there that creates banks like it does anywhere.
Yep.
But what happened that year was they had the opening, and then they had a few weeks later they had a flood. So it was like a second opening. So it just concreted the bank.
Yeah, right.
So the bank was there for like months and months.
Sick.
But I remember because I turned up, they had a at the start of the school holidays, so it all happened at the start of the school holidays, that flood. And then for the next 2 weeks, I was just surfing the point as I always did. And there was like this little left run into the point.
Yep.
And then every now and then there'd be this bigger set that just would break on this completely different bank and just peel all the way down the beach. So you kind of knew it was there. Yep. But I dialed in this little left and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm so ready for this comp that's coming up. There's junior section, open section. And then right on cue for the actual comp, it was like 6 to 8 foot, and it was like Kira. It was ridiculous how good it was. And I'd never.
It's never been like that since. Just for the listeners out there,
just to clarify,
it's been closing out since '88.
It's terrible right
that's
now.
what I'm talking about. It was good back then. It's not now.
Yeah, don't go there.
Don't go there.
Shit.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and that's not far from the truth. I don't think it's ever been. I'm sure it's had its days, but like I said, you
got to be lucky.
They rave about
you got to be real lucky, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You do. And getting waves off the boys down there.
No chance.
They wait a long time. So, but yeah, it was a different time. There was a lot less crew. And
so, what happened on that day of the comp?
Well, it ran for a couple of days, and it was like that the whole time. And I'd actually never seen waves like it. Like,
are you natural footer?
Goofy.
Oh yeah,
and
that's why you're getting those little reform lefts on the inside.
Yeah, that's why I was hunting that left. And I didn't know waves could like roar at you.
Yeah,
like
right.
That. You know how those barrels, like they just, there's so much noise and stuff. I had no clue that was even a thing. You know, and there were these brown things just, and guys were getting like 4 tubes a wave. And
Not the brown things like a Bondi cigar, the brown things that's in.
Which in 88 were pretty prolific as well, I would imagine.
River water is what it was.
Yeah.
That was pretty freaking special to have seen that. And I was way out of my depth. I still actually did quite all right in the junior comp. But there was a guy called Tony Reid. He was from Albany. He like the Albany boys they obviously had seen those kind of waves before because they handled it pretty well.
Yeah, okay.
As far as the juniors go, it was all Denmark locals. Adrian Shepherd.
Yeah, Ado.
So his brother, I think, won it.
Oh, yeah.
Or was in the top. There was a guy called Tari. There was a guy called Russell Day. There was Mark Shepherd. That was 3 of the 4 or 5 in the final. And they were just, they were as good a waves as you would see anywhere. It was really amazing. And then a couple of years after that, they started opening the bar on the other side, and that messed with it. And so for the next 10, 15, 20 years, it just... the waves were just all wrong there because they started messing with nature. Like nature always opened it up against the cliff there, and it had that flow along the points and deposited the sand where you wanted it to be deposited. But they started opening it
down
across
the
other side.
Yeah,
and I've got pictures of like all these little signs in that. There's that little bit of water as you're driving around to the Denmark Point that's right next to the road.
Yeah,
they put all these signs in the water saying, nature knows best, open the west. There's all sorts of protests and stuff.
Yeah,
and I was actually part of a group that got out there one night or 2 nights before they opened it one year. We tried to open it ourselves.
Tried to dig it out. Yeah,
in the right spot.
Yep, it's understandable.
So there was a whole battle.
With shovels, or did you have a digger?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. So
what? And you were unsuccessful, or?
Well, so what happened is the first night, which was before they opened it, we got it wrong in the sense we didn't leave the 2 ends blocked and dug out the middle, and then we just started digging.
Oh yeah.
And so the water kind of came in and was kind of like filling in what we're digging.
And you can't dig because the sand's liquid.
It didn't kind of work, and then they just filled in a section that we dug, drove the digger across, dug it on the other side. That next day, and then thought, we're all good, because they'd actually heard that it was going to happen. So they actually had people and patrolling to about 10, 11 o'clock.
Huh.
And then once the cops went, everyone got out.
That's awesome.
This is
because what do you get charged with? Like illegal sandcastle building, or like what's the charge?
It was a long time ago. It was 88, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, it was about 91, 92, somewhere around there.
This may or may not be true, by the way. Is that right, Holtzy?
I don't think they're going to bother arresting us for it now. That's for
this
sure.
Is all may or may not be true. Everyone knows that.
So the next day we went, well, bugger it. We're going to dig. There's going to be 2 openings. We're going to dig we're going to dig another one. And so for briefly, there was actually 2 openings. But the problem with the second night was we did it the right way, but the opening that I'd already created dropped the inlet level enough that we couldn't get the proper flow to create more of the channel and stuff. But I actually did surf the little bank in front of what we dug the next day. We did create.
It's rewarding then.
Tiny bank, but yeah, it was an amazing time because it was like just some people on the council. I heard things that they were yachties and they wanted it over there, so they create some channels they could make money selling property on the other side of the river mouth and stuff.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so
that's not private land though over there, is it? There's no houses there now.
I don't know. I really don't know. Like I said, a long time ago, different stories as to why.
You would think now...
Any land can be private land, mate, as long as there's enough money involved and enough greed.
You would have to think now that surfers have a much stronger voice than they would have had in 1991 in
especially
a very isolated town like Denmark. Back then, surfers would have been regarded as druggy scum, I would imagine, not far off,
absolutely.
you know, like, whereas now they're all esteemed members of the community and, you know, it's a totally different scene. You'd have to think that surfers have a bit more pull as to what's going on down there and maybe a bit of say as to where the river comes out, but it doesn't seem to because they always still open it in the middle of the beach, don't they?
I don't know.
True?
I think, middle or to the west, which is where it naturally, like if you open in the middle, it'll just gravitate to the west anyway.
Oh, yeah.
What they were trying to do back then was like the far east. So,
yeah. Oh, right.
So what, like half a K down the beach or something?
Yeah, like over up against the dunes on the other side.
Oh, yeah, right over.
Yeah, right over. Yeah, so that was, I guess that was kind of, like I was only there till I was 15 and then my mum kept living down there for probably another 10 years, so I sort of go down there for a few holidays and stuff. But that was my seminal period where I learnt to surf and
got the froth,
but sort of hasn't figured too much in my life since then.
Yep.
You know, I got friends down there and whatnot, and occasionally head down, but yeah, sort of moved on to, you know, Bunbury for a while, and then.
So living in Bunbury, I don't think the Bunbury surfers would mind too much. Did you ever get good waves?
There's actually a couple of really amazing little waves in Bunbury. They don't break often. There's a river mouth thing there that needs everything to be in its right
typical
thing.
river mouth, yeah.
But it can be amazing and can break for a long way. There's a really unique little kind of novelty wave that where the swell almost wraps 360 degrees to get onto this little rock wall.
Oh, yeah.
But they haven't been able to surf there for like decades, since 9/11, because it's at the end of this kind of port.
Yep.
And so after 9/11, they pretty much just went, like, no one's allowed out there. And I think they might be opening it again soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
spent
that
a
was
bit of
this
time
really
down
unique
there.
little left-hand.
I remember that wave, yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun. There's bits and pieces there, but obviously, like, Bunbury's main advantage is it's only sort of an hour from down here. So,
yeah, that's right. Out of
you're 2 hours closer than Perth to the coast. So
yeah, to the real waves.
That was pretty cool. For me, the kind of the most influential moment of my life was about halfway through doing the uni degree. I did a trip to Jake's with a mate, Paul Dvorak, who was one of the real gun underground surfers back then. He was pretty much Bunbury's best surfer. And we met up with some guys up there, this guy Hildo, who lived in Jake's for a long time, and after that, there's this guy Hildo and Jason, and they were living out of an old Falcon 500 panel van sort of thing.
Sick.
And just living that surf existence. Like, I was still going to uni and that, and these guys were just living in the car park. Like, they'd go down and they'd catch a couple of rock crabs, and with the rock crabs catch like a little fish, and then turn the fish into a 4 or 5 kilo mulloway sort of thing. You know?
Right.
And while they're surfing Jakes, and so I just saw that and went, man, that is me. Like, when I was coming from being in that accounting room with the accounting jokes going, what the F am I doing here? To seeing these guys just living out of their car and surfing and all that sort of stuff, like that that moment changed me. And Paul had already surfed Jake, so he came back to me and sort of said, "Oh, he was going to me, mate. Like, you know, there's Jake's, and then Nalu's even better. Like, blah blah blah." So I was like, "Right, well, that's me. That's what I want to do." And by that stage, I'd already started. I was actually doing fishing articles in the local fishing local newspaper, South West Times in Bunbury. So I wrote the fishing column there because I love my fishing, and I'd already actually had a couple of fishing articles published.
Oh, yeah.
So my first trip, as soon as I finished uni, I went to Nalu. And my first trip to Nalu, I had Gene Hardy in the car with me. And that was before he'd even stood on a surfboard. So he was still Gene the Charger Hardy on a boogie. So he was in my car, and then in the other car was Shane Guthrie, who's the original Margaret River surf photographer.
Yeah, right.
And Danny Duggan.
Oh, yeah.
And this other guy, Richo. So there was the 5 of us that went up to Nalu. And so at that stage, I had a camera, and it was like this, just a stills camera, 200mm lens, manual focus, manual everything, you know. And I'd taken up a couple of rolls of Velvia, which was the go-to.
That was the premium, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was like a buck every time you hit the trigger.
Wow.
With Velvia, because it costs you like $25 a roll, and then about $15 to get it processed. So it was like every time you hit the trigger with your roll of Velvia, it was $1.
And what, we talking late 80s here or
mid-90s by this stage? Yeah. So
you could still get a bit for $1. Like you could get a donut for $1. You know what I mean? Like, you get a good pie. You get a good pie for probably $2.
Yeah.
So it was half a pie. I mean,
so I could. See, that's why I was a fishing writer, because I couldn't take photos, but I could write. So it was easy enough to write to take a photo of a guy holding a fish, and so that's what I was doing. I was doing that sort of stuff, but surfing was always what I wanted to do. So I got up there with this camera, and I'd also taken some photos at Barenup before I'd left, I'm guessing, or maybe when I just got back. But anyway, I got up there for that first trip, and there was rumours that Tom Carroll was in town as well. And sure enough, it took a week or two for the swell to hit. But my first day at Nalu was, to this day, still probably one of the heaviest days I've been out there.
Really?
And so there was Tom Carroll, Wayne Lynch, Andrew Murphy, Rick and Shane Jakovich. I think the Pattersons, Jake and Paul, might have been out there. Adam Player, Kenny Dan, Danny Duggan. Like it was a who's who, full underground lords. I actually saw Tom Carroll pull back on a couple at Toomey's, and I'm sitting out there going, I'm here for 2 months, and Tom Carroll is pulling back. What the fuck am I going to do? I've never been a big wave surfer. My pop-up's not good enough, and I don't have the balls. Blah blah blah.
Standard.
That sounds exactly like me.
Sounds like most of us, to be honest.
Fortunately, it was, like I said, it was to this day still one of the heavy days I've ever been out there. Danny actually got the 2 mentalist ones the lot, like eyes closed, just paddling into these 8-10 foot things. Like, it was ridiculous. But I went to the Bluff that afternoon, and the Bluff was as good as it gets. And I took some photos with the 200mm manual focus lens.
Yeah. From land.
With one of my few rolls of Velvia.
Yeah.
And I actually rang Trax and said, "Oh, look, I've got photos of Tom Carroll at the Bluff. Are you interested?" I said, yeah, send them over. So I sent the roll to them sight unseen, or maybe 2 rolls.
Yeah.
Sent them to Trax, and I rung them, a couple of weeks later and said, "You got them?" And they went, yeah, we got them, and there's a couple of good shots there. We're going to run a couple. So I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to get a photo on Trax. How good's that?
Yeah.
And then I was there for 2 months. I got back down south. I've walked into the news agency, and I've looked at the tracks, and I'm like, that looks like the Bluff.
Front cover.
Front cover.
Yeah.
My first surf shot ever was the cover of Tracks.
Fuck, no way.
And it was the unknown surfer. It was Rick Jakovich, right? But that whole article was, the whole magazine was, it was one day all around Australia.
Oh, yeah.
So it was supposedly on this day, this is everyone surfing all around Australia. So
Unreal.
it's probably
Bluff
the only
one.
time they've ever run a cover where they didn't know who it was. So I was really lucky on so many levels. And the next photo I actually had published was won an underwater camera contest, an amateur camera contest with Surfing Life. And it was like a $5,000 underwater camera. So my first two photos that were ever published were, one was the cover of Tracks, two had won this,
Wow.
a national thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this must be,
This is you,
this is
surely.
my calling.
Yeah, yeah.
This is
'Cause the
fucking easy.
Yeah, the boys from Tracks went, you take a good photo, you should get in the water. So I was like, yeah, that's a fucking great idea. So that's when I jumped on the roof with the old man, started saving up, and then I went and did a whole season at Nalu. And that's where I learnt to be a surf photographer, actually get out in the water. Like,
Yeah, right.
First place I swam out was Toomey's, 6
Yeah.
Toomey's.
Boy.
So that's how I threw myself straight in the deep end.
Yep.
But ironically, I was actually thinking about this on the way down because that first day at the Bluff, I got the cover, and then Wet Dreams wanted to go like, this is our guy with Rick. So they ran a couple of ads of him.
Yep.
I also got a poster of Tom Carroll, a double page of Carroll, like
Fucking hell.
in Waves magazine, and a few other shots. So those two were the biggest paydays I ever had in surf photography.
And it was your first.
My
time
basically
round.
the first two shots.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 5 years to the issue before I got another cover of Tracks, and that was a water shot at centres of Andy King, Gabe Medina's coach.
Yeah, classic.
And I only got the two covers of Tracks, those two. I've got a few other
Two
covers.
more than us.
Yeah.
I haven't had any covers of Tracks.
Nah.
Unfortunately.
Not recently. No.
Mate, do you remember the first cover? Do you remember what are you able to divulge the payment for a cover back then?
It wasn't a lot. It was like $300 or $400.
Yeah.
Your main money, Tracks did put the cover up eventually. Your main money back then was in ads. So and this is where I struggled to be a surf photographer in the end, because the only real way back then to make money was you needed a bunch of the most stick-it-up pros you could.
Yep.
And you needed a rape and pillage. You needed, you wanted 5 guys each with 5 or 6 stickers on their board at every session.
Yeah, right.
And personally, I hated that. I hated people that did that.
Yeah.
So you're at the mercy of your editors too. So the original editor that gave me that cover was Neil Ridgway.
Oh, yeah.
The main guy at Rip Curl. And he said to me, mate, I don't care if you never take a photo of a pro surfer. I'm sick to death of pro surfers.
Yeah, okay.
Keep giving me that underground goodness. And then the next guys after that were the opposite. And so I was great under him, but then with the next ones, it was harder to do. And also surf photographers, like back then, and it may or may not have changed, I don't know, but they're a really weird bunch of dudes. And so the first 3 I met all were really nasty to me.
Oh, yeah.
Or had issues. I won't mention names. I'll mention one because he's passed away, Marty Tullermans.
Yep.
And Marty, as it turned out, he was off his medication at the time.
Okay.
But him and I ended up becoming pretty cool. And I only actually rang him to say, how much should I be charging Wet Dreams for the ads of Rick Jacko? So it's actually a great thing to be asking. I didn't want to undercut.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to know. He blew up like I was, taking the food out of his kid's mouths. He was screaming at me down the phone.
Wow.
And so between him and these other 2 guys, I was like, do I even want to do this? Am I, is this how I'm going to turn out kind of thing? And it wasn't until I met Bill Alexander where he just said to me, mate, if I can't take a better photo than you, then I shouldn't be in the game. So he was willing to offer some advice and, take a young guy under his wing or whatever. But those other guys were all pretty looped out. As it turned out, Marty Tullerman's was, like I ended up, every time I saw him after that, I was like his best mate. But, there was a point there where I did ask myself, do I want to do this?
Yeah.
And it was interesting listening to Tom Geno.
Oh, yeah, the recent one, yeah.
Yeah, because, he was saying that he's, like, on the spectrum and stuff. And I was just thinking, fuck, you really are a surfer. You're old school, proper surfer.
Yeah, that's how you should be if you want to be a surf photographer.
Because you're not doing it for the money.
No.
You're doing it for some other kind of thing, and I don't know what it was, and that's partially why I didn't stay in the game for forever, was because it's just too hard. There's just no money. You're filming when the surf's good. You're surfing when the waves are shit.
Yeah. The hours are long behind the lens, long behind the editing.
And back then there was a real anti-photographer sentiment as well. And I used to get really upset about that because I would rock up to a surf spot. I'd either just ring a local, say if I wanted to, there's a certain left that does a little bit of a pipeline impression at sort of 6 foot that, I might ring Rick Jakovich and go surfing there, go and shoot him there. Or I just go, I think that wave's going to be good. I'm just going to go there and I'll film whoever's going to take off and pull in. So I did a lot of that.
Yep.
If I did anything with a pro, it'd be one guy. Like I did a lot with Andy King. I did a lot with Dave McKinley. For whatever reason, I did a lot with Cronulla boys.
Yep.
So I was kind of just, I'd go somewhere with one guy and hang out with them and do the thing with them.
You don't want to turn up with 5 pros.
Yeah,
You're always going to piss
and
everyone off if you do.
Because they used to, it was a QS back in those days. So there'd be 100 competitors.
Oh, mate, it was like 250 or some shit, wasn't it?
And then it felt like it, yeah.
When they had mates who would come with them who all surfed good, and like you'd just see carloads and carloads of like these tiny little high cars with 5 coffins on the roof. And then when they'd turn up to a break, mate, all of a sudden there's like 10 incredible surfers would just...
Yeah.
It was pretty hectic when it was a QS, wasn't it?
Just like midgets running around.
Yeah.
With tiny cars and heaps of surfboards.
Yeah.
And just going ballistic and all the cameras and...
Yeah, cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas now that it's a CT, it's definitely way more chill.
Yeah.
Way more chill.
Yeah, there's some definite advantages to that. But so I had a lot of... so I did a lot of like supporting the young guys. So I was like, the kind of the first to film... Claire, Bev, or Rye, Kirby, Yaden.
Yep.
Like Yaden's a prime example. So I got his first shots in tracks. He was like maybe 13. He was this tiny little kid, had a helmet on. I took him to that wave that was named after a tailpipe on a car.
Yep.
And I just took a couple of shots of him like in a barrel. And I wrote a story for track, so no line-up shots. I always tried to steer clear from line-up shots because I think that was something that actually messed. That was something that would increase people at a wave. When you can see that line-up, you go, fuck, I really want to surf that wave. But if it's just a guy in a barrel, that's all it is. It's just a guy in a barrel, So I got a couple of shots of Yaden. Tracks ran him down in double page. I got paid like a couple of $100. He got like $1,000 or $1,500 in
incentives.
In photo incentives.
Yep.
He got paid so much more than me as a 13-year-old.
That's a 13-year-old.
And the little story was like lesson at Blood Reef. And then I'm in a car park one day and this guy goes to me, Blood Reef, eh? Better watch it, mate, or you might get bloody like this.
Really?
That was, yeah.
That was down here as well?
He was a surf coach at the time.
Okay.
I won't mention his name, but it just showed that.
We'll give you another couple of double IPAs. You'll be naming it.
I don't want to say anything negative about people. I want to say positive stuff.
I'm joking.
But it was like that was an indication of where people's thoughts were. I'm looking at a 13-year-old kid who wants to be a pro, and I'm helping him out, putting a shot of him in the mag, and then that's the attitude I'm getting from people on the same coast.
Yeah.
There's all these other photographers were coming in with the 5 pros, rape and pillage. I'm trying to do the right thing. I did a lot of stuff with Camel, with Buzz Morawski, Shero, like all of those underground guys. I was always filming and hanging out with them. and never going to make any money out of it. I was doing it for the love.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was out surfing this another time, and this chick come up to me and she's like, "Are you Leith Holtzman?" And I was like, I'm thinking,
Depends who's asking.
I'm thinking, here we go, yeah, baby, kind of thing. And she's like, "Well, I think you're an asshole with your photos." And I was like, "Well, nice to meet you," kind of thing. But that
why
was,
was she claiming that for the same reason? That you're
yeah,
exposing
like
spots?
they saw me writing articles about WA waves,
Yeah.
and at that time they saw
no
that
internet,
as a
no
threat to their
Instagram. Exposure was pretty serious, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah, and see, all of these other photographers would turn up in WA, for their couple of weeks, a month at the best time of year, rape and pillage, chuck it Box obviously always worked when the Masters was on.
Yep.
So the market would get flooded with Box photos.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't sell another
And yet
Box
they still
photo.
don't run there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't even get started
Well,
on that
I
shit.
did. I fucking opened up that can.
But anyway, yeah.
And then they'd probably just go back to the States or South America or wherever and sell the shit out of all
make,
that.
and make
pump
their
it all.
money,
And the
leave me
locals
to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, and the locals here that are getting angry at you wouldn't have seen all that exposure over there because it's over there. You didn't get those magazines.
And they
Or
probably
if
also
they
can't
did,
read.
They can't have a crack at the people responsible. They just
Yeah.
see me in the water.
Yeah, they're like,
So,
yeah.
I mean, that was one of the main reasons that I kind of got out of surf photography was I just got tired of it. Just feeling like people hated you all the time, and all I was doing was trying to help the kids, and it wasn't like I was driving around in the latest 4-wheel drive or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you're not, if you're a surf photographer, you don't have money unless you like your Russell Ords, your Bill Morris's, they're firefighters and stuff. Bill Alexander was a ranger.
Yeah.
So you had to have to be a successful surf photographer, you actually had to have a proper job.
Yeah, or most of them would be selling to the public beautiful landscape or wave images, and especially now online, like Jamie Scott, always down the markets for fucking 20 years. He's down the markets every second Saturday.
And he does
selling,
right out of that.
Yeah,
I was chatting to him in Nalu, but
Oh yeah, but it's that extra angle that was supporting their habit, if you will.
You got to hustle, right?
You got to hustle. Yeah, it's not like they were just coasting along on the back of surf companies.
yeah.
It's not
No
like
chance.
your early days, mate. We just take a couple of random shots up north and
Mate, that must have been such a trip.
cover.
I did want to come back to that because obviously at that time when you took that photo, mate, you didn't even look at the negatives through a magnifying glass.
No, I had
You had no
clue.
internet. You're just in the desert.
Yeah.
I mean, you think it's isolated now. At least you can, if you walk up to the water tower, you can get a couple of bars of reception and touch base with the world. Whereas
Or Starlink.
it was, oh, right, yeah. But
So
now
you
there's just nothing.
actually just took the roll out of your camera and posted it off.
And just
Yeah.
posted it, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Posted
And then
straight
walk
to
in out of the desert, haven't had a shower for fucking 7.5 weeks, have one shower, walk down the local news
there
agency,
it
and
was.
it's just like 100 copies of your fucking photo.
Yeah.
And you're like probably not even sure if it was your photo.
I wasn't, because I just looked at it and thought, that looks like the bluff.
It looks
And that was
pretty
it. And
awesome.
then so I've opened it up, and then sure enough, it says, Rick Jacko, photo Holtzy, Leith Holtzman.
What was
blah, blah,
your little tagline under your photos? Was it Holtzy or
blah.
Holtzman?
Oh, it was
or-
just Leith Holtzman at that stage.
So full
It
name?
became Holtzy
Okay.
when I moved into the dirt bike side of things.
Okay.
Which we'll obviously get to.
Yep.
But yeah, it was like a sign from the gods
Yeah.
that this is, what you should be doing. They were the only signs, like I said, I put a
They
lot
weren't
of
dollar
effort.
signs exactly.
I
Little
put a
bit,
lot
there
of
was a little
effort into it for a long time after that. And the problem was that to be groundbreaking at that stage, you needed money. So, the Quicksilver were doing the Quicksilver Crossing, Billabong were doing Billabong Odyssey, Crew was starting to buy jet skis.
Yeah.
I couldn't be anything new or unique. I was just kind of there, just trying to hang in there as best I could, working on the roof, laying tin and then taking a few photos, working behind the bar, whatever
bar?
I could. I worked at the Margaret River Hotel for
Okay,
a fair while, and also at the sports store in Margate.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, just, whatever job to try and paid the bills, because if you took a photo today, you got paid for it in 4 to 6 months' time, which that isn't helping you if you've got to pay the rent at the end of the week or any of that sort of stuff. So, it was just so, and I don't know how guys like Geno do it now. Obviously, I think, to some degree, maybe the surfers actually pay the photographers because they got edits.
There's a bit of that going on. Yep.
There's none of that advertising revenue anymore, or very little. There's none of the magazine revenue anymore, which was, those were my two staples. You wouldn't have dreamed of charging a surfer to film them. That wouldn't have been a thing at all. So
even when they're getting paid for your shot more than you are, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, especially when they're like 13.
Oh, sick, $1,000.
Yeah, you got a new pushy, like this flash pushy out of it and all sorts of stuff. I'm just like, man, this is wrong on
got
so
the
many
mongoose with
levels.
the chrome fucking back spoke pedals. And,
Yeah. And it's funny, I think, say, with Rye, for instance, on his movie, he was talking about how some photographer was frothing on him, yelling "Go Rye" or whatever. I'm pretty sure that was me.
Oh yeah. Because he had that as his number plate for years, didn't he? Go Rye.
So, because the thing was, there'd be him, there'd be Mick Short, there might be Claire, there'd be Stevie Nola might have been there. There was a bunch of sort of kids in that sort of area, and Yaden would have been another one. But at the time, Rye was maybe worth a couple of bucks, where a lot of them didn't really have the sponsors or the. So anytime a set come through, I've got 5 grommets on there to film, but there's only one I might be able to make some money off. So I'll be yelling out, "Go Rye, go!"
Yeah, it's not his turn, but you're like, "Go Rye."
Everyone else.
So there was logic behind that. I wasn't frothing on him entirely, but it was that thing. And I got his first cover. I got a cover of Surfing World with him.
Oh yeah.
And I would have had a cover of Kirby's first cover as well, but he jumped off which is probably the last time he jumped off in a barrel, a split second. I took the photo, I took a sequence, and the one, if he had stayed on his board 1 second longer, or half a second longer, he would have got that shot.
Yeah.
And that was with the fisheye, you needed to be right on top of him.
Yeah.
And the guys at Surfing World went, that was the cover shot, but his feet had just left the board, so I missed that. I was, pretty gutted.
Sort out Photoshop these days. No worries.
Probably, yeah.
Like you say, he never did that again in the rest of his
Probably
career.
not. No,
he never aborted a barrel again.
The first shoot I ever did with him was there was him, there was Claire, there was Mark Brandis, Mick Jardine, Hargraves. We're all at that same spot, named after a car part.
Yep.
And we got a full thing in waves from that. But I remember Kirby that stage on his backhand, no hands on this little slab as a kid. I was just going, man, he's so casual and so amazing, already. It was crazy.
And it's a heavy wave. It's not a place to be casual.
Yeah, I took Cale Gregson to the hospital from there one time, split his head open on that reef.
Go Kale. Oh, no. Oh, no.
The worst thing about that one was that, because at that stage there was sort of me shooting the Margaret River boys, so that was like your Camels and your Buzz and Sheros and whatnot down south, and then Twiggy had Jake and Taj, and they were obviously the money guys.
Yep.
So I almost never got to shoot Jake and Taj.
Yep.
And they all rocked up at that spot.
Twiggy, the surf photographer from around this area in the 90s, for those that don't know.
Yeah. So he was one of the other real OG guys who unfortunately passed away over in France a while back. But he actually was making quite good money because all he did was shoot Jake and Taj. And I think Jay Davies, when Jay started coming along.
Yep.
And so they rocked up that day, and Twiggy's shooting off the land, and I'm in the water. I'm thinking, here we go, finally.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to do all right here. The boys, because it was, it was perfect light, perfect everything. And then I got one photo of Jake and then Kale split his head open. I had to take him to the hospital. I had to just drive away and leave Jake and Taj just getting pitted off.
Just
his nut.
leaving money on the table.
Yeah, just,
hectic.
you know, there was no choice. His head was literally split open.
Yeah.
Um,
He was probably fairly young at the time.
Yeah,
Carl Grigson?
Carl. Like Carl's another one that, like him and Benny Rufus, are like
Oh, look,
the
on
Denmark
the TV. Same man we're talking about.
Oh, there you go. Jake Patterson waving a pink washi, doing a real weird little movement with his pink washi there. That was some sort of sign. To his,
Oh,
But those guys, you know, back then you would have never have thought that they'd turn into the nutcases. That they,
yeah, right.
You know, they would like Carl was a pretty good like air kid.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and Ben was just, you know, he was just happy, sort of competing at a state level and just surfing good, and he was just a nice little kid.
Yep.
So to see the things that they've been able to achieve down south has been pretty amazing.
Yeah.
To watch, I've got to say.
Mate, how did you go with, say, you've got a Cale Grigson and a Benny Rufus, maybe there's a bit of old Denmark connection there. These are young guys who have come up here when the limelight's on. You've got an older guy who's a photographer. I mean, is there conversations with the parents back then going, you know, can you look after me son? I'm sort of trusting him with his care, or any, was it sort of like that at all in some of those situations? And if it was, how did you explain the split head and shit like that?
I don't know that there was. I mean,
was he
Carl's
sort of...
dad back then was pretty, I think he was driving Carl pretty hard to be maybe like on the tour.
Okay.
So I can't actually really remember. I mean, so one of the main ways I got involved with all of those guys was, I don't know whether you remember a guy called Richard Stone.
Oh, yeah, from Surf West.
Yeah, so
he created magazine.
That Surf West magazine.
Yep.
He actually created some of the first ever, like he created that City Beach night comp. He started.
Oh, did he?
He was,
right.
He was a pretty driven guy.
Yep.
So he was kind of like coach manager of a lot of these guys. So
Okay.
Claire, Kirby Rye, Shorty, all of those guys at some stage were on his stable.
Okay.
So he used to, you know, like get me to film them. So he'd get them all together and, you know, I'd turn up. With Carl I didn't do a lot with because he was actually based in Denmark, but he'd come up occasionally or I'd go down there. Same with Ben. But, yeah, it was sort of like all of those Margaret River underground crew I would do stuff with. And then, Stoney would bring, you know, your Rise and whatnot down for different shoots and that kind of thing. So...
No formal written agreements for liability of their precious child or anything like that. It was just like, off you go with this mad dog.
Yeah.
Holtzy, who just calls you into death pits fucking in isolated parts of the world. You'll be right, son. Off you go.
Yeah. I mean, look, when you kind of look at it now, that like it's true that's that. But I guess I don't know. We just didn't really think too much about it. Of course, when I moved into bikes, when we get to that, there's a lot of heavy situations.
Yep.
When I got into that side.
Okay. Well, before we get into bikes, mate, you didn't give us your first tube. Can you? You said it wasn't that memorable.
I think
but
it might have been Denmark, but I just remember going. I think actually Kim Crack was there, and I think I paddled up to him and said to him, I think I got my first tube.
Oh, really? Well, we'll have to get Crackers in here and we'll verify the situation.
It wouldn't be particularly memorable for him. But
maybe he slipped off in the barrel and that's what started his deep drive to create the world's best surf wax.
Yeah, who knows? But,
Dr. Crack Surf Wax for all your surf wax needs.
Yeah, so probably that one or potentially that little... novelty left in Bunbury.
Oh yeah,
I got a few barrels there.
Yeah,
that's where
sick.
Because that broke like the wave was called the Wall.
Yeah,
and it broke like right onto rocks.
Okay.
So you had your wall board, which was basically the most dinged up thing.
Really?
Because if you fell off, your board was going in those.
Even with the leggy,
boulders.
the length of the leggy was still going to hit the rocks.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Your board was in the rocks.
That's cool.
Because it'd be like 8 foot onshore death shit.
Northwest,
Actually
right?
onto the beach.
Northwest.
Well, northwest, and then when it swung southwest, kind of like how you get some of those sort of random
Yeah,
waves
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
bay here, and the swell would wrap almost a full 360 degrees and come and just break in onto the rocks.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, that was. I can actually I'll show you guys a couple of pics later.
Yeah, sick.
Mum took a couple of shots of him.
Mum
Me
did.
there one time.
Nice work, Mum.
So yeah, that would have been where I learnt how to at least ride a tube.
Oh, yeah.
In that little spot.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I surfed there a few times. I had a bit of time in Bunbury back in the day as well.
Yeah.
My old man lived he lived on the same road as Indiana, Lovegrove Avenue.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so get out there occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's where that primary school is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I went to that primary school for a while.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So it was just across the road from there.
What about obviously your first trip to this part of the world would have been pretty quick and easy from Bunbury. Was it while your dad was still surfing, or did you go with some older mates?
I
or how
come
did it
down
go
with the old man, come down to Gallows.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the first place I surfed on this coast. And I would say almost certainly I've surfed there more than anywhere.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a Bunbury hangout.
You were there last weekend when we were supposed to record last weekend. You're like, well, So I like that you're still hitting it 40 years later.
Yeah. Well, it's actually dead on 40 years since I surfed there.
Classic.
So,
No point going there because the track is terrible and
it's crowded.
And Holtzy will take all your fucking waves off you anyway. So.
I'm too old to hassle crew for waves these days. So I just go paddle out onto those back reefs and sit out there with the dolphins.
Oh, and getting the roll-ins.
Yeah, get a few roll-ins and stay
sick.
away from
the high fire inside area.
Inside ledge.
Yeah, it's it used to be a bit of a Bunbury only spot, and then someone had a radio show for a long time, and every time a certain set of conditions come up, he'd go there, and then
Really?
that kind of ruined it.
Bunbury only spot.
Yeah.
I reckon there's a Bunbury only spot that I used to think was a Bunbury only spot. It's a bit out of the way. Here, I'll say it off air.
Oh, yeah.
And every time I went there, it's pretty out of the way and a long 4B track. Not really that good. And I used to go there about 15 years ago, and it's like you go to all this effort and you go in there and it's not that good, and there'd be like 10, 12 cars there, and it seemed like they were all from Bunbury. Was that doing the rounds? Was that the break doing the rounds in Bunbury? You reckon the name of it, or was it just me,
mate, so I can see because I think I know which one you're talking about.
And I never really scored it, but I
never
was
got
like,
any good either. And I've actually had some mates in recent times. I've had some pretty sketchy run-ins with the men in grey suits.
At that spot? Okay.
It's a bit sketchy. But yeah, look, I mean, I think Bunbury guys were pretty adventurous. They got down on the south coast a lot as well. Some of those waves down there, they spent a lot of time.
And I mean, you could say, they're Bunbury guys, but the reality of it was, it's like 52 minutes away. I mean, some mornings you drive around for 3 hours before you paddle out. Yeah, so it's not exactly like they're blowing in from, it's like, fuck, mate.
Semi-locals.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, and, Bunbury, unfortunately, doesn't really have waves. I mean, I'm hoping that Albany artificial reef works, because Bunbury will be the next spot, I reckon.
It's being installed, isn't it?
Yeah, right now.
As we speak.
Yeah, they've literally got the barge in the water and doing whatever they're doing. So, yeah, hopefully Bunbury's not too far away for the
well,
sake
they put
of the
the
crew
airwave in
there.
at the Bunbury, didn't they? But it failed instantly.
Yeah, well, that was never going to work. But they also got really unlucky too in the fact that because it was like a big pillow, a big inflatable pillow or something, but they
Big
just
goon
happened
bag.
to get the one summer swell of like the year. It was like 2 days after they put it in. So before it had a chance to like create sandbanks and stuff, it like a swell hit and just, ripped the
tore
thing to
holes in the
bits and it
bag,
was
yeah,
all
right.
over.
Burst its bubble.
Yeah.
So they're still in the process of getting a second sort of reef in there, aren't they?
At Bunbury, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a blow up one. It's more.
There's a Facebook / Instagram pages about it and stuff like that.
Yeah. But Bunbury's literally dropping rocks. Albany's dropping rocks at the moment. Yep.
Yeah.
At Middleton Beach, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we can safely say
And
that.
the beaches in Bunbury are similar to Middleton, where they actually do get swell, but most of the time the banks are just straight as.
Yep.
So at least if you had a reef with a bit of shape, you'd get you'd get some waves.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
And Middleton's the same, from what I understand. That most of the time it's a straight closeout, but it gets swell. So
and yeah, look, you can get good waves in Albany, but fuck, you got to work for them. They're long
Yeah.
drives, they're fickle. There's lots of 4B tracks, and
I got a
makes
lot
it
of
pretty
Albany
hard.
mates, and they spend a lot of time driving to spots, all sorts of out of the way spots.
Yeah, that's right. And you get there, and it's offshore and 3 foot and no good, and so it'd be
just
nice.
driven for fucking 3 hours
Yeah,
out,
don't-
halfway to bloody Bremer Bay or something.
Yeah.
And,
4B tracks, and
Yeah.
so it'd be nice for them to have a bit of a bread and butter style,
just local.
like the Yamagi's main break or something where you can just always go and the kids can go and get a surf after school and know that no matter what, they're going to get some sort of wave. So it'll be good for the community for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
All right. Well, mate, so you started out in stills. How did you get into the video side of things in surfing?
Well,
and did you make a standalone video yourself?
I made a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started shooting video, like when I was talking about how the problem with being original was that, trying to be original at that time is you needed money.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, I want to start filming a little bit. I can't always shoot stills. It costs you $1 every time you hit the trigger, but sometimes you want to keep filming, So it was kind of natural progression. And somewhere around that time, a guy approached me. He wanted to set up an extreme sports magazine. He ended up pumping out about 3 editions. It's called Tubed Out. So he's sort of come down from Perth. His name was Trevor Rogan. He's a really well-renowned pot artist now. He draws all sorts of pot cartoons and stuff, and Cottonmouth Kings love him. They've used his stuff on album covers and all sorts of shit. But back then he had this idea of this extreme sport mag, and so and I was like, fuck yeah, something different. Yeah, count me in. So he had me filming skateboarding, BMX, really early freestyle motocross. Went to Lancelin Dunes one time. So I was there to take photos for his mag, but I also took along, I'd by that stage bought a little video camera and also got
Was it digital by then? Or?
Yeah, it was a one-chip
first,
digital, which
one
people
chip, yep.
know what that means. So one of
like
the early...
The first ones, yeah.
Yeah. So I started filming and photographing all of that stuff. And from that, so I released Organised Chaos, which was like a bit of everything. So there was a couple of surf sections in it, and there was a lot of people who had their first surf video clips. So yeah, Claire, Rye, I'm not sure whether Kirby was in it. He might have been, but Dino was, Yaden, Shorty. There was a whole Tavita, Kukalau. I don't know whether I'm promoting that right, but yeah, so that was their thing. But then there was also a skate section, an FMX section, a BMX section, and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up making 3 surf films, so Organised Chaos, then Widespread Panic, then Total Oblivion, which was around the time you were releasing yours.
Yep.
We were I remember seeing your waves from up here. I had no clue that waves got that good up this end of the coast. So there was some sneaky beachy things. I'm going, where the hell is that? And why didn't I know that even exists? You pride yourself on, as a surf photographer, on being at the best wave on the coast on any given day, because that's your job.
Yeah.
And then I was seeing stuff that you were putting out going, bloody hell.
Holtzy, of course, is talking about lubrication 1, lubrication 2, and lubrication 3.
Yes, yeah. So we were kind of semi-competitors.
I guess we were.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, mate, I felt like I was an absolute fucking nobody, which I was, and I wasn't affiliated with the scene, and it was pretty similar to you. I was working in a bar, just pulling beers and randomly cruising around to spots and just setting up and filming with no clue who was out there, or was just sort of doing it pretty rando. And I remember, seeing your stuff and thinking that, well, mate, he was like some big professional guy, I was just some backyard hack,
Yeah,
like
funny because I kind of thought the same thing of you. I was like,
There's no way I was that guy.
Adz is stitching me up here. He's got so much better ways. You had a lot of Jake and Taj, which, like I said, like Twiggy had him covered. So
yeah.
I wasn't.
It's just because I was in that area.
Yeah, I had Rowan Annesley. That was another one that was sort of on that first thing. First video. Stevie Nola. I did a lot of work with Steve. Love working with that guy. What I sort of decided to do, and again, it was interesting listening to your chat with Tom Geno, how he just went, I'm just going to be a surf photographer, and everyone kind of, did or didn't believe him and whatnot. But it's the beauty of being young is you don't think about why you shouldn't do things. You only think about why you should. And I kind of went to myself, I'm sick of this surf thing. This isn't working for me. I'm going to make Australia's first all freestyle motocross film. So Krusty Demons were about 3 or so videos into their career, 3 or 4, I'm not sure.
They were American.
They were the American, they were the instigators. They created the sport of freestyle motocross. For anyone who doesn't know, that's all your backflips on motorbikes and all that sort of stuff.
Seth Enslow and crew.
Yeah, Seth, all of that sort of stuff. So I just went, I'm going to do this, and I didn't think about it not being a thing. I was just I'm going to do it. I rang a guy over in Melbourne who he was importing a lot of the clothing and stuff and said, I'm going to do this. Like, do you know anyone? And he gave me a list of names of kids that had sent their resumes to him to go to try and be sponsored. And so I just jumped on a plane and went and started filming these kids all around Australia. So that footage I would then put in the next of the surf movies. So I did, after Organised Chaos, there was Total Oblivion, Widespread Panic. There was always an FMX section in those movies. It was, lots of surf, and got some, had some amazing sessions that were on those movies, but there was always also that freestyle motocross element.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was really lucky because the kids that I discovered, like there was an X Games in Melbourne in 2000, and that was like the pivotal moment of freestyle motocross culture in Australia. All these Aussie kids that had never been heard of come out of the woodwork and just kick the American guys' asses. Okay. All the big name crusty guys are over there, like Kerry Hart, who was married to Pink. He'd just done the backflip. There's a few other guys, Mike Jones, a few others, and Aussie kids won. They got first, third, fifth, and sixth or something.
Who were some of the Aussie kids, like the Chad Reeds and that sort of thing?
No, Chad was always racing.
Okay.
So there was always that line. Freestyle was like the bad boys, the punk rock. The racing was all factory teams, fitness, blah, blah, blah. Freestyle was always about getting pissed and trashing hotel rooms.
Going large in every aspect.
Being rock stars, which really appealed to me as well. I really enjoyed that rock star part of it. And I was a pretty sheltered kid. And then I started hanging out with the FMX guys, and I was the oldest and by a long way. But I kind of lived my actual party childhood. Like, I wasn't that kid that at 18 went straight to the pub. I was too busy surfing and that. But then when I started filming with the FMX boys, suddenly I was like, I don't mind doing this shit. So, there was some drugs and some big nights and stuff as part of that, which was really appealing. But the guys that I filmed for that first freestyle motocross film were the guys that actually won that event. And I actually launched my movie the night before that event started. So it was like, here's my movie. Here's all these kids that no one's ever heard of. 2 days later, they're the best in the world.
Oh, timing.
So the timing was immaculate. So from then on, my films with the motocross were like the ones. And I was the guy breaking new ground and stuff and not just following like I would have been with surfing. So surfing kind of just took that sort of natural, it slowly died for me because it just wasn't it wasn't paying the bills, and I wanted to actually surf when I could. The great thing about the bikes is I never wanted to hop on a bike.
Yeah.
So when I was, and especially after, I had 2 helicopter flyouts from bush where I had to call in paramedics. A guy broke his back in New Zealand, and a guy broke like 7 bones out in the bush in Townsville, where we've literally had to.
Fuck.
And I was scraping them off ramps all the time.
Fuck.
I commentated an event up in Exmouth where a guy died.
Really?
So
in the comp?
Yeah,
Or
I
in
wasn't
the
comp. It was
show
a
or
demo.
whatever it
But
was,
he died.
Wow. What was he trying to do?
He was one of the, I think it might have been his first show, and he rode really well during the day, but then he unfortunately went home and indulged.
Yep.
And then hopped back on the bike. He didn't go home, went back to his hotel room, hopped back on the bike, and then tried to jump in the dark.
Oh,
yeah, and apparently,
mad dog.
there's lights and stuff, but
Yeah, but still.
he wasn't mentally right for it, and he had a crash and
Wow.
passed away. So that was pretty heavy, but.
That's rock star life right there, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's what the
I
scene
could
was.
tell you so many rock star stories like those
Okay,
guys.
tell us one. Don't have to name names.
us-
This may
tell
or may
us
not
too.
be true.
Well,
Yeah.
I had a mate just over that we were talking about one, and we were on this Red Bull Air Slaves tour. It was, and this one particular rider, we had a really big night where there was some chemicals involved. The night before we were due to do a show.
Like aspirin, and stuff like that.
Just crushing up aspirin, yeah.
Yeah.
Blood thinners.
And I remember I tried to stop him this guy a few times during the night. Go, mate, you've had enough. We've got a show tomorrow. Blah blah blah. But I couldn't. He was invincible at the time.
Yep.
And so the next day we're down we're on this foreshore. This is in Victoria. And everyone's putting on this show for this crowd. It's a free show, like a portable setup. So you're landing on a big truck, landing ramp, and jumping. So jumping 75 foot. So this one guy, so everyone had been indulging, but this one particular young guy, he'd gone real hard, and didn't ride the first show. There's a lot more to this story, but basically he was watching it and went, bugger it, I'm going to ride. And he literally hopped on his bike, revved it up a couple of times, lifted his helmet, vomited, shut his helmet. He didn't, normally they speed check ramps, so they ride up to it a couple of times and just get their head around what they're about to do, because you're jumping 75 foot. It's not like surfing where you land in water or whatever. You're jumping all this way. You've got to get it right first time or you're fucked. And one of the things I learned over the years is you always film that first jump, because that's when they're going to crash. They're going to crash. They're going to crash in the first 2 or 3.
Don't miss the first one.
So anyway, he's just hit this thing and just gone upside down and tweaked his, and the crowd's just gone nuts.
I loved it.
He rode for 10 or 15 minutes. I got a cover, a poster, and a bunch of other stuff of him. Parked his bike, vomited again, and wasn't seen for 2 days.
So he landed them all, killed it all.
Yeah, he killed the session.
Yeah.
He's in a wheelchair now because it caught up with him.
Laugh,
but for that particular, he should have died that day. There's
morning,
no way he should have been able to ride the way he did.
Yep.
But he was such a freakish natural talent that he was able to do it.
Wow.
And like I said, he didn't do one speed check, he didn't do one practice jump.
Nothing.
He literally hit it and just went, here's what I got, legs off, high in the air, hanging off the bike,
Little to no sleep.
Well, no sleep.
Yeah.
Well, he actually, I mean, I've still got this image of him falling asleep with a certain paraphernalia thing in his hand.
Yep.
Still. It's just like this.
Tongue out,
at
open mouth.
7 in the morning.
He's just having a quick rest before
the
the show.
due to start at 10 or whatever. So I don't know how he did it. But that was the lifestyle for those. They're much more pro now. They have to be.
Yeah. Well, you're there in the early days,
double and
weren't
triple
you?
backflips. Yeah, I was. Yeah, the original days sort of thing.
Mate, have a sip there before you go on to the next story, because
I'm getting a bit dry.
yeah, you're telling some good yarns, and
Would like to hear your thoughts on this What cheeky monkey have you given him there,
I
Adzy?
got a Lighthouse Hazy IPA.
Double
and
IPA.
it's 9%.
Wow.
So by the time I've finished this,
The stories are going to be
the
thick and
stories-
hard.
Well, they might have gone past stories into just babbling. But
I'll give us a on the spot review there.
it's not bad, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Hazy
mind it.
citrus, I believe, was written on the can. Pretty standard.
Citrus tones.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm selling these at where I'm working at the
Oh.
moment. So, yeah.
Who's that?
That is
Upside.
definitely-
Oh, that's Leo
Nice
Fioravanti.
and cold. We just gave it a little freezer treatment for you just to make sure it had a nice edge on it.
Yes.
It's,
Delicious, got to
yeah.
say.
Yeah, very good.
But,
Mate, give us another. You said you had plenty of rock star stories. Is there another one that springs to mind?
I'll give you one.
That was a
that's
pretty good one, to be
one
fair.
one of my all-time favourite FMX stories. So I live with a
Sick.
guy called
Frothing for this one.
I live with a guy called Robbie Madison in America for a
fucking
while.
hell, we've all heard of that
So
name, surely.
I mean, Robbie's Australia's version of Evel Knievel. He at one stage had the record for the longest jump on a motorbike, for the highest jump on the motorbike, a highest drop. He rode that bike at Chopu.
Yeah,
in
across
water.
out of the jungle,
yeah,
across
yeah,
the water.
I mean, he's done so much stuff.
Yeah, he's
it's
the man.
crazy.
Yeah.
He's a legend.
I don't
absolutely.
follow the sport at all, but I fucking
Everyone
I know
knows who Robbie
yeah.
Madison
Oh,
is.
for
So
sure.
this was before he'd really got to that status. So he just moved to America with his fiance at that stage, and he was trying to crack the big time. So I went over there to live with him for a while to kind of film him, and also
Had you been filming him in his early career at that stage?
yeah, bits and pieces. I didn't film him as much as other guys because we just kind of didn't. We missed each other a bit. You know, I was at events that he wasn't at, and vice versa. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to go over and film him. You know, because he was obviously one of the best, and he was trying to crack at America, and America is the home of freestyle motocross, and specifically where we was living, which is Temecula in California. That's where freestyle motocross first began. So all the guys that
Is it near the coast or?
yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, from memory. And all the OG FMX guys, a lot of them were from that area. That's where a lot of riding went down and all that. So it was like going to the Mecca.
Near LA, or is it sort of in the middle of nowhere?
Oh, nearish to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a long way away. So anyway, like before you go over to America, you know, obviously we've watched a million American TV shows, you know.
Yep.
So there's your guns and your high-speed car chases and your exploding cars and your Bronx movies, like all the, the hood stuff and all that.
Yep.
So you've kind of got that in your head before you go over, like, what am I in for here? You know, America's a pretty extreme place, you know. So, Matto picks me up from the airport. We drive out to Temecula, and I'm at this place that's like, I was like so excited. It was like, it'd be like I suppose kind of the equivalent of being able to stay in a house looking straight at pipeline or something.
Yep.
You know, like
Yep.
I was on a property that a guy called Les Linkogle owned. His son Larry was one of the original.
Les and Larry Linko.
Yeah.
What a fucking
So Larry
weapons, don't they?
Linkogle and Brian Deegan were the guys that created Metal Militia, which are like the
Yep.
they're like the Billabong of freestyle motocross kind of thing.
Wasn't that a band, Metal Militia?
No, it's
just a brand.
It's a brand, yeah. They Nazi helmets and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
sorts of
yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
So I'm like, I was so excited. So I'm living on this property with Matto and Amy and the Linkogles. Larry was off doing something else. There was a property just below us that a guy called Nate Adams was living on, and he had a whole set of jumps there. And Nate at the time was number one in the world. So I'm just like, this is it. Everything is perfect here, you know. And I've gone to sleep the first night thinking I'm in heaven. And about 1 o'clock in the night, I just hear this awful sound. It's like, like this, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I've got out, and I'm staying in this like little kind of 2-story outhouse, and I'm on the top story, and I've looked out, and Matto's truck is a fireball. There's like flames 6 foot high.
Robbie Madison.
Robbie Madison's truck has got flames 6 foot high coming out the bonnet of his car. So I've run down there in my jocks. Maddo's come out, and they're fighting the fire at 1 o'clock in the morning and blah, blah, blah. It turns out that his missus had actually, Amy, his fiancée, had actually heard voices about half an hour before and said, Maddo, someone's out there. And he's going, no one's out there, because we're on this farm. We're out in the bush. Like, there was no reason for anyone to be there, you know. But what we found out later is that basically they'd come in and they'd squirted fuel under the bonnet of the car and lit it, right?
Wow.
So, and we're like, we didn't know why they'd done it. Why would you do this? Maddo's pretty new to the game. There was some issues with Larry Linkogle and Brian Deegan because they were 50-50 in the metal militia, and, they'd had a fallout. So there was some shit going on there. So we didn't know whether it was involved in that or whatever. But anyway, so the next day, the trucks are right off. We hire this truck, like them F100 things, those big, ute truck
Big American
things.
truck.
Yeah, those things. And we went and did this shoot at Mike Metzger's compound, which is, he was a legend at the time, so that was really cool. And then we drove into LA late that afternoon to try and look for another truck for him to buy. And we got lost in LA and ended up in the Bronx, right on dark.
South Central.
Right. And the Amy's driving, and we took this wrong turn or whatever, and Maddo's kind of yelling at her. And so she freaks out. She wrenches on the wheel, drives the car straight into a curb, blows a tyre. So now we've got two skinny white boys and a little skinny, cute blonde girl in a busted-up truck in the Bronx on dark. We've got his brand new 250cc motorbike on the back. We've got 40 grand worth of my uninsured camera gear in the thing, and there's hoods all around us, right? And Matto and I, we were like a Formula One tyre change. You've never seen two pasty white boys change a tyre quicker than the two of us did. Yeah. And the whole time it's going on, Amy's giving us like this commentary. She's going, they're coming over. I think one of them's got a gun and all this sort of shit. And Matto's just going, shut up, Amy, shut up. And we're like, on the tools, and we've there was guys were starting to come over to us. And I don't know, maybe they were coming over to help. Maybe they were coming over to not. I don't know. We chucked that tyre in the back and jumped in and just screamed out of there, right? So we've got out of there, and then we've got back to the farm, and there's a car parked at the bottom of the farm where no car should be. So we were thinking maybe that was who'd set fire to Matto's truck the night before. So Matto's kind of boxed him in and got out to confront him. And I'm like, what are you doing, Matto? He could have a gun.
Yeah.
So, So he goes to kind of hop in, and this car didn't wait. It just chucked this Yui, come bolting past us. And Matto's like, fuck this. So he swung the car around, and next thing you know, I'm in a high-speed car chase through the streets of Temecula, chasing this guy. Amy and I are both freaking out, going, "What are you doing, Matto? What are you going to do if you catch
He's an
the guy?"
adrenaline junkie. He's not going to. He's not just going to stand by and let this shit happen.
Green light, running red lights, chasing this guy, and eventually we lost him. And then, so we got back, and it turns out what we think actually happened was that. So Larry Linkogle, he'd been hanging out with these neo-Nazi skinhead guys. And then
with a company called Metal Militia.
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
But then he was dating one of the Williams sisters, either Venus or Serena, the black tennis players, and was cruising around in
a complicated story.
In her Learjet, in her private jet. So the neo-Nazi skinheads weren't happy with him, and so they'd come out.
Well, they wouldn't be.
Yeah. So they'd come out to set fire to his truck, but they set fire to Matto's truck. So my first.
Not the sharpest tools in the shed, the neo-Nazis.
Yeah. So basically my first 48 hours in America, I ticked every box. I ticked the exploding, the car. Yeah. I ticked the Bronx thing, the high-speed car chases.
Yeah.
The whole
guns,
thing. Just done, dusted.
I've got seriously, kudos, because you fucking set that up beautifully with this is what we get in America.
Yeah.
And then just fucking knocked it down.
Ticked off all the boxes.
Mate, no wonder you're a good writer. That was epic.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a good,
that was a good one.
it's certainly one of my go-to stories. There's a million of them,
Yeah.
but that
And
was
how did the rest of the trip go with Robbie Madison from there on in? Was it-
relatively uneventful compared to that first.
Did he?
I went
did
down
he,
into
Did he wow the crowd though? Was he early guns and everyone's like, "Who's this guy?"
Oh, there was a lot of guys that were good.
Yep.
I ended up I was able to jump in with I got the flu and then I ended up giving it to him, which didn't help because we went up to Portland for a due to a extreme event, and then I jumped in with some other FMX legends and went down into Mexico briefly. So that was pretty amazing because these guys are like they're the Kelly Slaters of FMX. These were the guys I was hanging with. So it was really surreal and really amazing. Like lately, I've been posting a lot of stuff online of some of the stuff that I've done and seen and been
I've seen
part
a
of.
lot of nostalgia posts. coming through.
Yeah,
I've been
and a lot of
following
guys
it.
are getting a lot of good feedback on it. But it's just reminding me how incredibly lucky I was to be. I never made any money. I ended up making a bunch of FMX films, but still didn't make much money out of that. But the stories and the adventures and that sort of stuff, because those guys because they're only ever one jump away from serious hospital time, they really knew how to live. They really knew how to live. They knew how to have a good time.
Yeah, or death as well,
Yeah.
One jump away.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of like one of the guys that, two of the guys that I filmed on that trip both passed away riding.
No way.
That was what I was about to ask you. I watched a movie, a doco recently. I can't remember where it was. It was like Nat Geo or Netflix or something. I think it's called Fly or something. It's about how base jumping went into the wingsuits and stuff. And as you're telling me all this, I'm sort of wondering how many, like by the time that documentary got released, one of the main guys I were interviewing who'd been the guru teaching people forever, blah, 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 like he died. They're all talking about, you look at every group photo of all these base jumpers 10 years later and it's always like 30% of them are gone.
Yeah.
And, and I was thinking when you were telling me some of these stories, like how crazy are the odds in that game? Is it maybe not as bad as base jumping, but how many people are in wheelchairs and died from that scene? Was there many, or it wasn't too bad?
There's
or
lots. There's literally lots. Australia's version of it was Australia's version of Travis Pastrana. And most people have heard of him. We had a guy called Jono Porter who was very similar. Really articulate in front of the camera and also just an amazing rider. Well, he actually crashed racing. He was leading a race and he crashed and the field landed on him and he passed away.
the field?
The field.
Oh, the field.
Field, yeah.
Okay.
Like all the rest of the races landed on top of him.
Okay.
So, we lost him really early and he was the guy that was always on national television.
Okay.
He was part of this Pepsi Max tour at the time and he was just incredibly articulate and good looking and professional and stuff. So he was really bringing freestyle motocross to the people.
Yep.
And then, that happened to him. But it's, because the thing is the tricks got harder and harder and harder. Like I can remember at that Melbourne X Games, or maybe not that, but a thing not long after it, there was this arcade game where you could ride a bike and you'd do a backflip and you could do tricks doing a backflip. And we just laughed as in like, that's not even possible, Yet only a few years later, that became very possible. Those guys were literally doing a backflip and doing stupid shit while they were upside down.
Physics defying, right?
Yeah,
Almost.
Well, certainly front flips on motorbikes are physics
Yeah, for sure.
defying.
Yeah.
Because you're going against everything. Like at least with a backflip, it's a natural kind of movement, whereas the front flip, it doesn't make any sense at all. You've kind of got to hit I think it must be the front brakes as you kind of get to the top of the ramp to kind of stop the front end to allow the back end of the bike to come around and stuff. So
that's pretty messed
you
up.
know, and the thing is they've up until recently they've always been landing on either hard packed dirt or metal ramps. So yes, you can go and practice into a foam pit. So the foam pit for motorbikes was where things really started to progress really quickly because they'd, you know, like they could practice a trick instead of just with the original backflips. They would just they'd practice on a BMX into the water or something, and then they like throw some straw or something on the ground, and then huck it and hope for the best.
Yeah, right.
You know, and so right from the start, you're running the risk of hurting yourself. But when foam pits got created, and so they're just like massive pit, you'd fill a shitload of tyres and then a shitload of foam.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have a crane, and then you'd just learn to do
It's almost like
trick.
what they do the gymnastics practicing, isn't it?
Yeah, all of that. So it became doable. But the problem is that you still, when you take it out to the rest of the world, you've still got to land on something hard.
Yeah.
So you can land that trick 100 times perfectly, and you fuck it up once, and you're landing on steel or hard packed dirt, and then there's issues.
Yeah.
So those guys, like, a lot of guys have passed away nowadays. Most of those shows, they have these kind of like airbag landing ramps. I used to just put a bit of an airbag on the front of the truck, and you still had to land on the metal. But now they've created these airbags that are strong enough that you're actually landing on them.
Right.
So it's become a lot
Public
safer.
liability and so forth. They don't want people dying at their shows.
Yeah, exactly. So there's been a lot less deaths, but there's, you know, an Aussie guy passed away fairly recently within the last couple of years, a guy called J.O. Archer, and he was practicing for the distance record.
Oh, yeah.
When that happened. So you still, like, for those sorts of things, there's still that huge amount of risk. And there's actually been 2 young fellas that have Aussie kids from the East Coast that have passed away. I think both of them were basically practicing for the same thing.
Hectic.
So it's, you know, it's a pretty serious sport.
Is there any sort of scene happening for the girls in terms of the?
No, the few girls that have done it, they've struggled because their bodies just aren't geared to take that kind of punishment.
Yeah.
So they get hurt. You know, and then it's just that much harder for them to recover. There's a girl in New Zealand that was riding with the Crusties for a while.
Yeah.
A friend of mine. She was all right, but then again, she knocked herself out that many times. She just had to give it away.
Yeah.
There really is. There's not even much of a scene for the males these days, but certainly, you know, there might be a token female in the odd show, but her level, it's not like surfing where the level of girls is getting like insanely better all the time.
Yeah.
The girls, any girls doing freestyle motocross are, you know, they're at basic trick level kind of thing. So yeah, there's not.
Gotcha.
Just that, I guess, flying through the air in a, I don't know, how much does those motorbikes weigh? Like 150, 200 kilos? Like,
Yeah,
They're pretty heavy.
flying through the air, 50 metres above the ground, trying to manhandle that thing. There's got to be a pretty solid element of physical strength to make it go where you want.
And also, you know, courage. I'm not saying girls aren't courageous, but there's obviously more. You know, you always see those posts on Facebook about why do girls live longer than guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
Freestyle motocross is a prime example.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
like it's a fine line between courage and testosterone-driven stupidity that as young men we all experience because we just didn't know any better. You jump off roofs, it's shit you just do. It's just human nature. So there's got to be an element of that, I guess, doesn't there?
So
pretty hectic.
so you know that was a really special time being able to do that stuff, and I was also I was living up in Exmouth a lot, and as a whale shark photographer, that's the actually only job as a photographer that ever actually paid any money.
Oh yeah,
Was I did 13 seasons.
Did you?
Swimming with whale sharks. So yeah, just basically filming and photographing people.
Yeah.
Swimming with whale sharks. That was my job every day. You just go out and cruise around the Ningaloo Reef with a camera.
Mate, I did that. I paid the $450 for the day or whatever it was, and was on the full tourist trip. And mate, could not recommend it highly enough. It's something you only need to do maybe once or twice in your life if you're going to drop $500 for the day. But mate, they lay on the lunch. They provide all the shit. They've got bloody planes flying over above.
Your money gets
spotting
spent.
them. Yeah.
Sure.
And mate, you're swimming next to these, 8-9 meter long biggest fish in the ocean. It's fucking awesome. Like
it really is. Yeah,
you should. It's definitely worth doing.
Yeah, well, I did 13 seasons of it, and that was why. And towards the end, of course, it then became legal to swim with humpbacks.
Okay.
And I mean, they're another level altogether. Like, so with whale sharks, you can get a really long time with them in the water. They're cruisy. They're really
pretty slow.
With the humpies, you might only get 10 or 15 seconds, but they're burnt into your brain almost like a really good tube is.
Right.
Because they're so big and they're so powerful. And look, any animal when it's threatened is either fight or flight.
Yep.
And humpies are fight.
Are they?
So you don't fuck with them.
Really?
In the water.
Wow.
When you jump in.
I mean, not that I ever thought of fucking with one, but I always just thought they were the biggest, mellowest things ever.
No.
No?
If you don't want to, you got to be careful with them when they got their babies.
Yeah.
And because there'll be the mum and the baby, and there'll also be the escort, which is like a big male that's kind of, I think he basically wants to be the next cab off the rank once he's done a
Standard issue.
Yeah. The MILF kind of situation. So you had there's been times where you'd be in the water and the baby will come up to you.
Yeah.
Going like, "What are you?" And then next thing you know, the mum's over there and the escort freaking out, like, "Get away from my child," kind of.
Really?
And
what
we're
do they
talking
do?
about a 15-metre animal capable of, a lot of stuff. So yeah.
Do they try to hit you with their tail, or what do they do?
Oh yeah, they peck slap, like use the side fins to get away from my child kind of thing. Yeah, it can be pretty intense, and that only happened a couple of times, and there's rules about what you can swim with like those ones were where you would actually be in the water, like with a whale shark, and the baby just happened to come to you.
Yeah.
So you're not actually allowed to swim with mums and babies. So you're picking the right one, but they can jump out of the water. I've been in the water and I've watched one come towards me, just leaping over and over again. Like 12 metres of animal getting full length out of the water, and I'm in its direct path.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, I could be dead right here.
Yeah.
This thing could land on me.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of adrenaline with all of with that sort of role, but it was I mean that was actually, like I said, it was the only time photography ever really paid a bill for me. was doing that.
Like you could actually pay your regular bills.
Yeah, but it only ever lasted early it lasted for 4 to 5 months. These days it's more like 7 months, 7 months.
Season, yeah.
It's a bit longer the season because the humpbacks kind of allow that too.
Yep.
But that was a really cool time, and that actually paid for me to do a lot of the motorbike stuff and stuff. So it's really kind of cool that Whale Sharks inadvertently was supporting freestyle motocross in Australia.
Mate, how many photographers out there, wedding photos through summer, pay for their winter surf photography?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Did a few shoots with Russell Ord back in the day.
I'm sure you did some weddings in your time, didn't you? I did a couple.
Not many. I hated them. But
yeah, same. I'd fucking.
Did you do video for a few?
Yeah, I did a couple.
Yeah.
I had one cracker story which sort of ended my run, mate.
Can we hear it?
Yeah, okay. I don't want to cut into Leith's.
You know that I always cut off your stories, but I'd like to hear this one.
Oh, okay. This is pretty good. So I had me mate Mono here, who you would have crossed paths with. He was head bouncer down at he was definitely bouncer down at Settlers for many a year.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty obviously
Definitely.
big fucking dude, goatee, blah blah blah. We were pretty young. We were making surf movies. He would jump on my second camera and we'd shoot videos. We were old mates from back in the day. He grew up in the national park, like backing onto the national park at Smiths and stuff, and I stayed in his mum's chook pen up the back of the bush, and so we're pretty intertwined, Like, anyway, he's come back from Melbourne. He was trying to become a professional hammer thrower. So he was a big unit, shot putter and hammer thrower. And he come back. I'd been living in his mum's old chook pen. It was literally a chook pen. That'd been somewhat turned into a bedroom, sort of. Not really. It was a chook pen. But anyway, I was sleeping in there. And
there were still chooks in there.
No, there was a fuckload of possums running up and down the roof every night. It was so loud. It was deep in the bush, man. And anyway, so I was like, mate, Mono, we can, this is circa 2001, 2002 maybe. And I'm like, mate, we should do some wedding videos and that can, because obviously, I wasn't making any money out of lubrication, right?
Yeah.
So and I was working at the bar at Caves pulling beers, so that was my job. And obviously Caves has always been a wedding venue. That's pretty much why the joint got built in the 20s,
Yeah, okay.
So I had this wedding video lined up. I'd met this guy and his missus and I was like 21, 22. May or may not have been stoned most of the time, so it was all and there was no internet and it was all pretty loosely put together. They were pretty serious, obviously. I was fairly serious. And anyway, their wedding is happening at Cave's house. I think I'd done maybe 2 weddings and I really didn't enjoy them that much because, mate, I was 21, 22, as I say, living a pretty free and easy life. And all of a sudden I'm at these heavy, important, critical fucking events, where you had to nail it and you had to watch the wedding 20 times after you've filled it. Some guy fucking crying and spilling his guts out and you've got this wide angle fucking up close of his tears and you're just 21 trying to edit it up and watching it over and over. It was fucking horrible. Yeah. Anyway, so we had this wedding.
And that was just the DJ.
Yeah, that's right. That was just you doing the DJ at the time because he was DJ Namu doing half the gigs at the time, swinging in the same circles. And, yeah, man, so I was working. It was a Saturday, summer, weddings going on everywhere all the time. And I was working behind the bar. It was lunchtime. Mono's rolled in because he only lives down the road, Caves Road. So he's rolled in for his, complimentary Jackson Coke and a ciggy out the front and, there's bugger all people in the bar. It was, it was people coming and going, but it's pretty early in the day. So Mono's having a Jackson Coke and he had nothing better to do and I'm talking shit with him and he goes outside for a ciggy. He comes back in, he's like, Adzy, there's a fair few people rocking up for this wedding already. It's 1 o'clock. You said it was at 4, right? And I'm like, yeah, 4 o'clock, man. As I say, there was no emails and it was all, I probably wrote it on a bit of paper or some shit. I can't remember. And he's like, there's a fair few guests rocking up. Should I get some shots of them? I'm like, nah, man, it doesn't start for hours. Let's not worry about it. And then, anyway, so he sits at the bar. We talk some more shit. He has another drink. He goes outside for another ciggy, comes back in. He's like, Adzy, there's a lot of fucking guests here, mate. They're all dressed up.
The bride's here, mate.
Yeah. No, he's like, mate, they're starting to gather in a pretty strong crowd. And I'm like, oh. He's like, should I start getting some shots of them, of the crowd walking in? I'm like, yeah, if you want to, man. I don't think it's any big deal, but yeah, fuck, why not? Go get some shots. So he grabs a second camera. That was the Digital 8. I had the new U-Boot 3 chip.
Oh, yeah,
the 3 chip, mate. That was the big dog, even though it was small. So he's grabbed the bag and off he goes. And then I don't see him for a fair while. And I'm not stressing and I'm just...
So you're behind the bar at this stage?
I'm still working behind the bar, with Kylie Stafford. Remember Kylie?
Yeah.
Yeah, pulling beers with her and I hadn't seen him in a while. And then my shift sort of ends and I remember Kylie going, oh, can you help me move some fucking tables or chairs or some shit out down in the garden, extensive beer garden at Caves. And I'm like, yeah, no worries. So I go and start moving some chairs down there. My shift's finished. I've still got, in my eyes, an hour and a half before the wedding starts. And I'm fucking moving some chairs down on the terrace there, and I just see this wedding going down. Fucking, it's going down. I'm
it's happening.
Fuck me. I just run back to the bar, grab my 3 chip, with the wide angle, and I just run down. I'm just some young punk. I had crazy big long lamb chop sideburns and a fucking mullet and, just a young idiot, and I just run straight into the middle of this wedding. They're all sitting down and they're like fully doing the thing, man, exchanging vows, and I just run right up the aisle, pretty much like slide like a soccer star who's just kicked the winning goal on my knees with the wide angle on, right underneath him, and just start nailing the fucking shot, right?
I think I know where this is going.
And this guy is bawling his fucking eyes out, professing his love for his bride-to-be. I look over and I see Mono, and Mono, mate, he was 21. He looked about 40. He looked 40 when we were 16. Receding hairline, full bearded at 16. He was always like he was 120 kilos. He was overweight, mate. He was always a bit bloodshot, like a bit flustered, you know. And I look over him and he gives me this fucking look, just shaking his head in disgust. And he's flustered and he's just shaking his head like, no, no, no. And I'm just like, mate, I've just slid in on my knees, start nailing the shot. Guy's crying. He's looking down at me like, fuck, you know, like this guy's just slid in. Anyway, I fucking film it. We film them all signing the papers. And then we get a little breath in the action. And Mono comes over. Fucking hell, Adzy, we're going to end up on A Current Affair or Today Tonight for dodgy fucking wedding videos. What are you doing, man? You told us fucking for... And I'm like, mate, I must have fucked up, man. I'm sorry. I fucking swear they told me it's 4 o'clock, mate. You know, like, once again, may or may not have been smoking fatties all day long at this point in my life, you know? And I'm just like, mate, whatever. We'll fucking just... We'll give it to him for free or a discount. Like, who cares, man? It doesn't matter. We got some shit. You got some shit, right? Yeah. I got some shit. It'll be all good, man. We'll smooth it out. It's fine. And then he's like, oh, he wasn't happy, you know? Like So then we go over to where there's a car park, like a big fancy limo or something. So we're sort of having this discussion next to the car guy. And I'm like, so, mate, what are you doing? Are you taking him for a little sunset photo shoot and then dropping them back here for the reception? Because the reception's at Caves, right? Like, I know that for sure because I'm working there. And that's why I was moving the tables, getting ready. And the guy's like, well, no, we're going for a photo shoot at Ingy's and then, take him to the reception at Cafe Laguna on the beach at Yallingup. And I'm like, no, the reception's here, right? You're just taking them for a photo shoot and then back here. And he goes,
that wasn't the wedding.
He goes, nah.
Dropped.
And it's like, no, Cafe Laguna. I'm like, are you sure about that? And he goes, mate, I'm 100% sure. I'm telling you right now, the reception's at Cafe Laguna, and I've looked at me mate Mono. Then I looked at the people in the wedding and I'm like, I don't really recognise those people. I know who they are. And we're just like, fuck, it's the wrong wedding. And we're like, what do we do? And we're like, should we go up and hit him up to sell him like a fucking cheap wedding video?
Send him a bill, mate.
Yeah. And Mono's like, no, let's just get the fuck out of here. So we just legged it out of there. And then they cleared the whole joint out and the normal wedding went down and we just filmed it. And I'm like, it's so stupid. Why didn't we just sell those guys a $400 wedding video? Yeah. Like our wedding video was $1,000, which was big money for me and Mono at the time. We were 21. Mate, I was living in a rusted out Sandman in a chook pen in the bush. Like literally had no money. And we were so freaked out. Mono said, I'm never doing one again. It's too stressful. I remember the editing process of just watching guys cry all the time and I couldn't handle it. And you had to listen to I probably was too pedantic with making sure the video didn't have any glitches in it. So I'd watch it 10 to 15 times.
Right, yeah, I did the same.
Yeah, and I just I was too young, man. I couldn't handle it. I was too young.
It's one thing to watch a surf vid or an FMX vid because you're into that footage. Yeah. So you can watch it over and over again and be but watching
even that gets tedious.
Even that does,
yeah.
Looking there, staring into each other's eyes and go through that and have to watch that over and over again.
I know. It's tough.
That's exactly what
So the classic thing there, mate, so the people that were getting married, were they going, oh, fuck, someone stumped up for a video for us?
Mate, well, it was pretty funny because I remember doing that soccer slide in and this guy was crying at the time and I remember him looking, mate, I was like not even a metre away. I was on my knees just getting the shot of a lifetime. Mate, I'd love to know who these people are. They're probably still talking about it going, fucking
100%.
these.
You never know. They might be listening to this podcast.
And then not only that, there's some young guy with all fucking,
young
footage? Probably. And then not only that, there's some big bikey bouncer-looking dude over there that no one knows either. He's filming as well. It's like, who the fuck are these
well, they're
people?
not going to,
He's just behind a tree going,
And he was a dirty bastard too, Mono, so he could have easily have been a pervert for sure. But all right, let's have a piss break, shall we?
that's unreal. I'm glad we went forward with that.
I am too.
How you going, folks? This is Ronnie Blakey. You're listening to the Barrel Surf Podcast, the one and only, the sound of the West. Yeehaw!
All right, so we're back from a little break there. We had to, as usual, Barrel Surf Podcast, we had to sort out a couple of tech issues and put some new storage in there. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Leith Holtzman is with us on Barrel Surf Podcast today. We've got the Portugal WSL events in the background. It's happening right now. We've got Jack Robinson against Yago Dora. Grudge match extraordinaire. Yago against his dad.
It's so bizarre.
How do you say his dad's name, Adzy?
Oh, my, come on. Don't be so cruel.
Leandro Dora.
I can never say
not
it.
that
I've said it.
hard.
It's not that hard.
Mate, I've said it wrong at least 20 times.
Leandro Dora.
I don't know what
So one of the other reasons, apart from hearing some incredible stories from Holtzy today, was you wanted to have a bit of a chat about a bit of an upcoming release, mate.
Yeah, so I've got a book coming out, a fiction novel, surf fiction,
Unreal.
a surf murder mystery. One of the things for me
Yeah, I know.
has been.
I did say at the start of this podcast, we've got something a bit different for you, and this is what it is: a surf murder mystery. I can't say I've ever heard of that before.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that led to it. One was a dream I had. So the opening scene where my book's version of Kelly Slater is found dead on the beach in Bali. Something similar to that.
You had a
was
dream about that?
I did. I don't know whether it was Kelly Slater or whether it was just
Some
someone,
good-looking bald dude.
but I remember that.
With a baby's
and,
arm.
And also, this is another great story. So back when Kelly was in first 1 or 2 world titles, when he was dating Pamela Anderson,
Yeah.
some rumours went around that Taj was dating Cameron Diaz.
Oh, I remember that
same
rumour.
time.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, so, and I actually had a guy ring me up and say, if you can get photos of Taj and Cameron Diaz, I can get you 40 grand.
Oh,
So this is when it's
That's
like
a lot of
300
guys
for a
crying
cover
at
of
weddings.
tracks, three to 500 for a cover of tracks,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Someone's going, you get this photo and I can get you 40 grand.
no way.
So it put this in there, and I'm like, why am I being a surf photographer? I just go hide in the bush at Taj's place and make enough for a housing deposit in one night, you
Wow,
know?
that's crazy.
So the book, like, I've created like a slightly dystopian version of what's going on today, where basically pro surfing became that big that there's more money to be made in the bushes than actually filming them surfing.
Yep.
And the coolest thing is to date a pro surfer.
Okay.
Like, so anyone who could do a half decent Rio was on massive money because that's the
awesome.
coolest thing in the world to date a pro surfer. So there's all this whole paparazzi thing around it. And so it's, it's all very social media driven, which is, it's not actually all that different from what it actually really is.
Except for the levels of money. That's
yeah. So that's kind of the world that I've created, and I've used a lot of different characters. Like I've brought people that I've met during my life, but also say for instance Bunker Spreckles. I mean, there's that guy is. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with his
for
story.
sure. Yeah.
But I mean,
who doesn't want to be Bunker Spreckles?
The ultimate surfing hedonist. So he's in the book.
Yep.
So it's set on the pro tour, and someone is at each stop on the pro tour. Another pro surfer gets bumped off.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm pretty
Gets killed,
ruthless.
not bumped off as in they didn't make the cut.
No, they get killed.
Yeah.
So there's a serial killer targeting pro surfers, and my hero, a guy called Havoc. He's an undercover detective, but he's also he's very similar to
Keanu Reeves from Point Break. Was that what you were thinking?
That's what I was
Undercover.
So there is some homage to Point Break,
Is
North Shore,
Yep.
to various like great to Biggest Wednesday,
Yep.
because they're great. So there's little homages to them in the book.
Oh, yeah.
But
So
yeah,
who's Havoc? Who's Havoc?
Havoc's this so he's like my. So we haven't actually talked about my TV series that I did, but my main presenter on that, Bushy, he's a guy who can ride dirt bikes. He surfs pretty good. He can do everything pretty good.
Yep.
So Havoc's like that guy. He's a great surfer, but he can do all this other stuff. So he goes undercover as a wild card on the pro tour to find the serial killer. So, it's sort of mostly based firstly in Queensland, then in Margaret River, and then finishes up at Bells Beach during the 50-year swell.
Oh,
that kind of stuff.
Doff of the cap to
Yeah,
Point
because
Break.
one of the great things that I discovered with fiction, because with all my journalism over the years, it's all fact.
Yep.
With fiction, you can just play with it.
Yep.
And you can just create whatever world, anything you want to happen can happen.
Yep.
So it took a little bit for me to get my head around the fact that I can just go, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And it's a fiction,
And
so
then
it can
then
happen,
it happened. Yeah.
So it was really fun to write. So it's not like we talked about Breath earlier, which is, like Tim Winton's an amazing writer.
Literal genius. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's kind of takes you on this spiritual journey. This is kind of smart. This is like you're married at first sight. You're like it's a guilty pleasure, like it's not. I'm not trying to be Tim Winton.
Yeah.
This is like Jackie Collins stuff or whatever. It's like fully just embracing surf culture, surf hedonism, and telling a yarn. Havoc is what we'd all like to be. He gets to root chicks. He gets to surf. I take him down to the right, which is can I just say right now, it's the fucking worst name for a surf break ever. The right.
Yeah.
And I've been
It's
down
not
there.
changing. It's stuck.
Oh yeah, I've been down there with a couple of times with Dan Corbett and Jared Foster.
Yep.
And Myron Porter. Went down there a few times with those guys, and somewhere along that they told me that at one stage some of them used to call it Black Rainbow as well.
That's such a better name.
Such a better name because it's a real black water.
Yeah, you see some photos.
And you see those
that are
rainbows
like pretty
too.
black.
So
That one Schweppes ad that Russell Ord shot, one of his early water shots from there, and I remember seeing Schweppes, the drink, had obviously bought it off him, and it's so black. It's clean and black. It's like proper black water.
So, I shoot a scene, like I write about a scene down there, and that ties in my trips down there with those guys, also with seeing the locals. And I know Benny Rufus broke his leg twice, different spots down there. So he gets a little, my book's version of Ben Rufus, he hurts himself out there. So I'm tying in all of this stuff, but also creating this story about a serial killer and hedonism and stuff. And I wasn't even sure where it was going. Like I wrote, one of the great things about it was I was writing the book not even knowing who the killer was myself.
Really?
And then I woke up one night and went, oh, it's this person and this is why.
Yeah.
And I didn't
obviously
even know.
don't be telling us that.
I
now,
was throwing
obviously.
all sorts of dummies in as to why, because I didn't know. So I'm like, it could be this person, could be this person, could be this person.
Yeah.
And then one day I just woke up and went, oh, it's this person, and that's why.
Yeah.
So
We just have royalty enter the shed.
Yeah.
G'day, Lance Kennedy. How are you, mate?
Lance Kennedy Senior, Lance Kennedy Junior.
We got senior and junior here today.
Yeah. But anyway, no, carry on, mate. We're just, this is groundbreaking on Barrel Surf Podcast. I'm really fascinated. To hear a fictional book about serial killing and pro surfing, it's pretty cool. Man.
yeah, well, everyone that
How long has it taken you?
About 2 or 3 years now to get it, and I'm still rewriting the final little bit. So it bounced around in my mind for a long time, and then I had some time off work where I wrote a little bit, and then I started working again, and then so I didn't write anything for a bunch of years. And then, cut a very long story short, I broke up with a partner. I had a little bit of money. I also was recovering from my second of my hip replacements. Hadn't surfed for 10 years and thought, you know what, I want to go surfing and write this book.
Yep.
And so that's what I did. And so that's what I've done for the last couple of years. I spent 6 months in Bali. I did 6 months at Nalu last year. And I kept thinking, it's done. And it's still not done.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still playing with the ending because I'm also, it's not one book. It's a series. Like, I'm going to run with Havoc because he's a great character.
Yeah.
My bunker character's a great character. Some of the other people in the book are great characters. I see a Netflix series, all that sort of stuff. So I'm hoping that this is my retirement plan.
Yeah, cool.
You know, that I'll be able to just hang it somewhere with Starlink and a fridge and whatnot, and just write and live off that. That's kind of what I'm hoping to, because I got no money, I've got no property. I've been a photographer all my life.
Yeah.
And I'm a classic broke photographer.
Yeah.
So so that's basically.
And to be fair, it's not your first rodeo. We, as you say, we haven't even touched on Homegrown Maniacs, your TV show. So it's not like you just absolutely pluck this out of thin air and like, I'm going to create a TV show. Like, you've actually done that before.
Yeah. I had Homegrown Maniacs ran for a couple of years on Fuel TV in Foxtel. I had like 700,000 people in Australia watch it.
Yeah.
But that's
nice.
like proper figures.
Yeah.
Again, cut a very long story short, I was a bee's dick from being a millionaire. I got tricked into signing a contract with someone I shouldn't have done, and I basically lost everything.
Really?
I lost 15 years of work, and
Wow.
I kind of had to press reset on my life, and that was about the same time that my first hip went. I was out of the water for 10 years, went through the whole black dog depression thing, struggling with not being able to surf, some poor choices of partners, various other things that sort of happened through that period.
Yeah.
So
Homegrown Maniacs was quite successful with Foxtel, was it? I mean, this is before Netflix and all these other streaming, so it was no internet TV, it was all satellite.
Yeah, it was.
So Foxtel was your only other option outside of standard 7, 9 and 10, and so that went pretty well,
Fuel
didn't it?
TV was the go-to because that's what the surfing and the motocross and the BMX and all that stuff, that was all on Fuel TV and Foxtel. That was the go-to thing. That was where you got your extreme sport television fix. It was the only place kind of thing. So so I had that on. I had Alfie Cater. He was our surf presenter.
Yep.
Funny story with him, like the very first surf shoot we ever did with him was him and Jeremy Eagleton. Eagles.
Yep.
And it was at Calbommy, Xbox.
Oh, yeah.
And I was up in a helicopter. There was just him and Eagles towing, and I had Dools. I don't know if you met Dools.
Yeah, I remember
Steve Dool. So him and another guy were filming and photographing off a ski, and there was just Alfie and Eagles. And it was really choppy. And so what we think happened is that the leads off the battery to the jet ski must have bounced off on the way out. And so we've got out there. I'm in the helicopter flying around. There's a bit of a lull. They've turned the ski off and then gone to turn the ski back on. It wouldn't turn on. And then right on cue, there's like 3 35-foot waves come through. And I filmed it, and the camera ski tried to get in and rescue them before the set come, and they couldn't. And so the set ended up getting both skis.
Oh, wow.
So all of a sudden, I've got like 4 mates swimming around the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, 5Ks out to sea in 30-foot waves.
F out to sea in 35-foot waves. One ski is like half sunk, and the other's got washed, way away from everyone.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. It was like being at being at a movie where you see like the bad guy's coming up behind the girl with a knife or whatever, and you want to scream out, look out behind you, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, you're just in a helicopter just watching and filming. And
yeah, you could see these sets coming.
What are you going to do, drop a rope down? Like
Exactly. There was nothing we could do. All we could do was, like, call for help. But it didn't get... Fortunately, what happened, like, Alfie got absolutely shit canned.
Yeah.
And that actually washed him quite close. We were able to guide him to the one ski that was still... Because the camera ski tried to get off the side and they got knocked off.
Yeah.
So they ended up floating as well. But that ski kind of missed most of the damage, whereas the one that Alfie and Eagles had, that washed up on the beach at Gallows a day or two later.
Yeah, right.
Like, that got left out there.
Yeah.
So fortunately, that one ski was okay, so they were all able to pile on it and get back to shore.
Yeah.
But basically, the first shoot for that entire TV series was nearly the last one.
Yeah, well, nearly the last one, but also the best footage that you could for a TV show. Like,
Tonight got Play of the Day
exactly.
on Sports Tonight,
so,
and it was the first story of the whole series, just to show what our crew were prepared to do for the story, because Bushy hurt himself a bunch of times. Our female presenter, Crystal, she was like a diesel mechanic, cute blonde. She broke both her ankles at one of our shoots, and this was down in Donnybrook, and refused to go to hospital. She's like, because she was living in Kalgoorlie, she literally drove from Donnybrook to Kalgoorlie with 2 broken ankles.
Wow.
Got to the hospital there and they just flew her straight to So all 3 presenters were like really hardcore, and that was...
They were homegrown maniacs, weren't they?
Yeah, they were homegrown maniacs. So that was a great thing. So I did that on top of all the other... So I always had this creative thing, and that's what had been missing, like why, I've had both hips replaced from injuries. So I had 10 years out of the water. And so I needed that. I really found I was missing that creative thing. And so that's where the book come in. No, thanks, mate. Cheers. So that was a whole kind of thing. I just needed that creative output of something. So the book was the thing. And that's been my sort of, what I've been doing for the last couple of years. I had quite a bit of money in the bank. I was eyeing off maybe putting a deposit in the house. I've now got $500 in the bank. So please buy my book.
Yeah, you've gambled. I like it. You've backed yourself.
Yeah. So that, that to me, it was like I've got a brain. My body's shutting myself down, so I can't work physically anymore. Well, not a lot. So I needed to do something that, I'd enjoy. And use my brain rather than being an accountant or whatever the hell I perhaps could have done. So so the eggs are in that basket.
Cool.
And I'm, like I said, hoping Netflix might pick it up. Hoping crew will love the book and want a second one and all that sort of stuff. So one of the other things that inspired me is back when I was doing that surf photography stuff. I would travel with guys like Steve Nola and that, and they were kids that were, they didn't really read or anything, but they would travel with a book, and it used to be like Robert Barrett, the Les Norton book.
Yeah,
you ever heard of him?
Yep.
And Chopper Reed books.
Yeah.
Both of those guys are dead. No one's writing fiction for young males anymore.
Yep.
And I actually, I know part of the reason why is because the industry doesn't want you. I'm having to self-publish because every single agent in Australia is female, and every single publisher in Australia is 90% female. So
just the wrong gender at the moment for that.
It's just you hear about some issues with girls coming up against guy-dominated industries. Well, it's just the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And look, I get it; it's no big deal, whatever. But their go-to thing is the chick flick type books. They've got their girls in a book club or whatever. You know that they're going to buy this particular book, so it's really safe for them. But there's no one out there writing for the kind of guys that are listening to this podcast, just rat bag surfers.
Yeah.
You know, like where is the surf fiction? There almost isn't any. You know, and the Nicolas Cage thing that's about to come out, like,
Oh yeah.
you know, I'll reserve judgment on that. But everything I've seen tells me it's another cheesy kind of thing. You know, and I'm really hoping that I can get involved with a series for this and actually have some good surfers as actors and go to Black Rainbow and film there and you know, do some stuff at, you know, at the surf comps and you know, actually create a really cool TV series.
Yeah, epic.
You know, so we'll see.
Sounds amazing, mate.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Havoc.
Havoc.
First book, yeah.
After the
I love
the main guy.
I love the character sounds epic. Havoc.
Yeah. And look, I at one stage I was going to call my son Havoc.
Yeah, I was just about to say it's a pretty sick name, actually.
But then I was like,
you might be dooming him to a life of pretty mayhem, maybe, but he'd be a power figure either way.
Meet my sons Havoc and Mayhem. Yeah, they go right.
Yeah, because I mean, all my book, you know, like all my movie names are Organised Chaos, Total Oblivion, Widespread Panic.
Yeah. Homegrown Maniacs.
Yeah, Homegrown Mate. So it kind of fitted in with all of that sort of stuff. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So that's
and at this stage, I mean, we never really know when our potties are coming out. It depends how many mortgages Namu's got to sign up that particular week as to whether he can get around to editing or not. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it's quick. We're not really sure, but at this stage you're looking at trying to release the book when the Margie's Championship Tour is in town. It makes sense. I mean... That's when I used to release my lube videos. I don't know if you released any of your videos at the same time, but
no, I had them on different. I was on a different
trajectory,
sort of time trajectory. Yep. But yeah, that does make sense. And
makes sense.
That's why I'm doing it. May 17 is their first day of comps, a Friday. So I'm aiming at launching it at the Margaret River Bookshop on that Friday, sort of like from 5 to 7. Originally, I was hoping to have Gabe Medina there because my good mate Andy King's his coach, but unfortunately Gabe's obviously injured himself. So
shaving accident.
Is there any chance to be back by then? It's just a
I guess
shaved peck, isn't it?
Well, he wouldn't come to Margie's anyway.
Margaret's that.
No, exactly. He's not coming.
I don't think he'd really. So I'm hoping I'll get some crew there. Obviously, I'll be there, and there'll be a few others. But that's what I'm aiming at as a launch. So. From when you hear this, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, sort of thing, from when this sort of first comes out. But even so, just even if you can't make it, obviously through social media and that, you'll be able to buy it and that kind of stuff. Be awesome to get that kind of support because if I do, I can write more. We can see some surfing on television or a Netflix series, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And that was the whole point. That's why I did Homegrown Maniacs television show was that at the time I saw with freestyle motocross the next step needed to be on television. So a lot of freestyle motocross was in that thing for that to help build that sport. And obviously surfing doesn't need help. But we'd all love to see a surfing series on Netflix.
100%. It's actually a surfing murder mystery, my friend.
Yeah. So
I mean, they've tried to get surfing to the mainstream, and as we all know, as devout followers of the tour, there's plenty of times where we're the keenest out of anyone, and we turn it off
because still not interested.
Because it's just like they wait around 20 minutes to catch a 2-footer. So, mate, if we can get a surfing show on there that's got some good waves and got a bit of suspense and mystery and people getting knocked off, then it might fill in the gaps a little.
Bring it on. I'm gonna buy a copy and read it for sure. Are you going to release it digitally and paper as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And eventually audio book as well.
Sweet.
It needs to be on all of those platforms. And like I said, it starts off with the whole serial killer thing, but then it's moving into like there's some stuff that I finish at the end of the book that I leave open because there's more story to be told.
Yep.
You know, so it'll be perhaps a trilogy or something. I don't know exactly.
See how it goes, huh?
More to it.
So I know on the show we've talked a little bit here and there about mental health issues, and feel free if you're not comfortable talking about this, but would I be correct in assuming that part of the issues that you've had have sort of to a certain extent been alleviated through the creative outlets?
Absolutely. So I had a really bad wipeout in my mid-20s, and I was out of the water for nearly a year. And it kind of came good, but it was always there. And then
Where was the wipeout?
at Marks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Impact or hold down?
Yeah, no, I hit the water as the
Both.
hit me.
Yep.
Best day I've ever seen Marks. It was freaking pumping. Like, I didn't even know Marks could get that good.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, so it was really funny because my 40th birthday was amazing. And I was surrounded by all my friends. I had 3 bands at the Bears Bar in Dunsborough. It was this incredible time. And at that stage, I still thought Homegrown Maniacs was a chance. Fast forward 1 year later, I was up in Exmouth. I was living with some crew that were a bit too young. They were nice guys, but they weren't my crew. I'd done my hip properly this time, so I couldn't surf, and I'd also broken up with my long-term partner. I was away from family and friends. I bawled my eyes out on my 41st birthday. I was like, how did everything go so wrong
in 1 year?
Yeah. And then 10 years to the day, exactly the same thing happened. I was recovering from my second hip replacement by that stage. I'd just broken up with a long-term partner, and I was stuck in a town I didn't want to be in, or whatever. And I cried again. I was like, how the fuck have I, how have I got myself into exactly the same situation 10 years later?
Yeah.
And that was the moment I went, right, I'm quitting my job. I'm going surfing. I'm writing this book and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, cool.
And it was the lack of that through that period that really hurt. Like I still had some creative because I was doing the whale shark thing.
Yep.
I even had a gallery in Exmouth there for a while. I was still trying to do stuff, but the movies were done. The surf photography and freestyle motocross photography was done. Like the internet killed, video killed the radio star. Well, the internet killed.
We listened to that today, didn't we, King, on the way back from the beach?
Yeah, and so that, so there was a lot of really bad stuff through that period. But to come out the other side, it was really humbling. I flew to Bali. Your brain knows how to surf, So I'm thinking I'll just take off and start going upside down. I'll be right. It took me 3 surfs to get to my feet. I was like 20 kilos heavier than I am now. But slowly I just crawled my way back into it. And then, I spent 6 months at Nalu, just gone. So that was really special. So, yeah, as you're saying, that creative thing, because I went through some really dark times, and I had some questionable choices in partners. I had no less than 3 different occasions where I had an ex turn up on my doorstep and try and kill herself.
Wow.
So I had to call in ambulances and stuff and go through that whole incredibly extreme situation.
Yeah.
That period of not surfing and all that with the, because one hip took me way too long to get it fixed. And that's, if I can give anyone advice, get them fixed. Don't muck around.
And do the rehab.
Because all you're doing is costing. Everyone's like, oh, you're too young, blah, blah, blah. Bugger that. Just get it done.
Get it done.
Get it done. Do the rehab. Down south physio, someone like Trev, Lawrence Brown.
100%.
Do everything that they tell you to do, and you'll be back in the water quicker.
And because I was walking funny for so long, it was literally not much more than 6 months to a year after I got the first one done that the other one went.
Yeah.
And so I went, I'm
compensation. Your whole body goes out of whack.
Yeah. So, I when I die, they'll be able to resurrect me at any stage because I'm mostly titanium and stuff like that. Yeah. So they'll be able to pull me out of the coffin. And
Terminator 2 guy, that liquid metal. They'll just
yeah. So it was So absolutely. The creative side was a big help with getting over, the depression stuff that basically was almost 10 years of it,
Yeah.
Because we take surfing for granted and we forget just how important it is to help you get over certain things that go on in your life. You're having a bad day for whatever reason, you can go for a surf and everything's fine again.
Or at least a little better.
Yeah, but when that's taken away from you, it's really, and you've had it for, at
Your
that
whole
stage,
life.
it's basically 30 years. Yeah, so I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know, I was lucky in a way that I was at least still doing the whale shark, so I was getting in the ocean.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was looking at waves and couldn't surf. So we were driving up and down the Ningaloo Reef. So you know that you're looking at the waves going, oh, here'd be good and there'd be good. And, You know, and everyone's going, oh, yeah, we're going here when the shift's over, or we've got the day off tomorrow, we're going to surf there. And I couldn't do any of that. So it was pretty full on. But,
it's good to hear that you're in this place now where, mate, we've been trying to make this body happen for a good 4 weeks. Like, we keep booking Sundays, and one thing or another hasn't panned out. But pretty much every one of those Sundays, you're like, well, I'm down surfing such and such. I'll stop in on the way home. So it's good to hear that you're back in the water. And
I have struggled a little bit on this coast because I just can't do crowds anymore.
Yeah,
I don't have the energy for it.
Crowds, man.
So it's like I do struggle to surf down here now.
Yep.
Because just everywhere's so crowded. Any day of the week, whatever.
Weekends don't make any difference here.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're less crowded.
It's crazy.
Really?
Isn't it? It's unfortunate that it's that way, but I've been lucky that I spent a bunch of time surfing the east coast of Bali, even though I'm a goofy footer.
Yep.
I surfed a lot of rights, had a really good time over there, had some great sessions with a mate who lives over there permanently now. 6 months at Nalu, obviously there were some moments there. There were some moments where I paddled in.
Yeah, you get windows.
With whatever was going on in the water, but there was also plenty of times where I was just sitting out there going, I'm so lucky to be able to do this again.
If you just hang in that car park all day, every day, you'll get windows.
Yeah, there is windows. And I don't like my big stuff, so fortunately there's not that many big days up there. So I could just hang in the car park for those. And how we going here? Oh, it won't hurt. Yeah. You encourage me. Just a normal one though. I don't think I could do another 9%.
No, I don't have two of them.
Until the end anyway.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that sounds good, mate. Well, you've done a lot of things in surfing. You've been involved in surfing a lot. One of my favourite questions is always, best surf trips and worst surf trips. Give us one of each. It can be either, I'm assuming in the heady days of the early 2000s, there might have been a bit of company money getting thrown around, and maybe you went on a couple of paid surf trips, or it could be one of them, or it could just be a personal trip. Give us your best one.
I actually ended up doing nearly a full year with the World Bodyboard Tour.
Oh yeah.
And I made one bodyboard vid, which was, to me, is the best movie I actually made, like the most professional and complete.
Really? There's no money
one
left there anymore,
of my good mates,
is
a guy
it?
called Dave Ballard, who
I've heard of that guy.
guy.
He was a guru.
From Cronulla, really good surfer as well.
Yeah.
I could never give bodyboarders shit because just about all of them could surf better than me as well. But I actually ended up on ended up in the Mentawais on a boat, and that boat had like Mike Stewart and Guilherme Tomega.
Oh wow.
And Steve McKenzie. So basically royalty, like the best, most legendary sort of 5 or 6 guys in the bodyboard world I was on a boat with. There were 3 other boats. There were 2 or 3 other boats. They had some of the other young up-and-comers and whatnot, but I got on the royalty boat.
The big dog boat.
So that was really special. And then
tell us a bit about that trip. That sounds sick.
Look, the waves weren't that good. I mean, the main thing about it was actually, I remember one night just sitting around the table and they were swapping pipe stories, and that was really cool. Because Mike Stewart's is.
And Gully, I can't say that name, but Gully me at Tigadiga or whatever.
Tomega, So,
he was
like
pipe-
20 world
pipe dog
titles
as well.
between them, kind
Yeah.
of thing, you know?
Was he Brazilian?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was a pipe guru as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, there's a shot of him at pipe that's like one of the seminal, like a bit of backwash hit it right at the right moment. And it's loose how good that photo is.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, that was kind of cool. But interestingly, what happened from there, like just after that, we went to Cloud9 in the Philippines for an event. And the only time they had an event there, and Cloud9's an amazing bodyboard wave because with the surfers, they got the perfect tube, but the surfers kind of kick out after that. But for the bodyboards, that end bit's are just the most incredible ramp.
Okay.
So they were like really. I think when we got like 4 days of 6 to 8 foot for the for Cloud9 we were there all there for 2 weeks. But while we were there is actually when the Bali bombing happened.
Oh,
No way.
And so a lot of those guys had actually they'd done the boat trip to the Mentawais, gone to Bali, had been in the Sari Club and Paddy's and all of that for that couple of weeks in between, and then hopped on the plane straight to the Philippines for that event. So only a few days earlier, they'd actually literally been in those clubs.
Wow.
The whole, basically almost 90% of the World Bodyboard Tour kind of thing had been in those clubs only a few days before.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was pretty interesting. But I loved hanging with those guys because they there was no pretension about it. They were none of them making any money.
Yeah.
They're all just
Mike
dudes.
Stewart must have been making money.
Oh no, there's some issues there. Like he got ripped off.
Did he?
Some stuff. I don't know the full story, but
because all the boards had his names on them.
There was a lot of people making money off Mike Stewart, except for Mike Stewart.
Really?
Oh no.
And there was a bit of that.
Yeah.
I don't know the full story, so I won't go into it. But
yeah,
I mean, they were just lovely guys to hang with, and I really did enjoy that time. And I'm still good mates with Dave Ballard now.
Yeah.
He's come and stayed with me up in Kununurra for a while with his whole family. They went native when COVID hit. They refused to get the jab, so him and his whole family, him and his missus and 4 boys, jumped into a caravan and a car and just went around Australia while COVID was going on.
Yeah, cool.
Or once
Nice.
you could actually travel.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool that time. Probably one of the more interesting travel ones I had was my very first one. I went to Mauritius with Danny Duggan.
Oh yeah.
And so this was my first trip overseas, and we were obviously trying to surf Tamarin Bay.
No cameras, just
No, it was I was tracks by then,
Oh, okay.
and Danny Duggan was sponsored
Tamarin
by.
Bay with cameras.
yeah.
Well, Tamarin was all right. So, that's kind of we'll get into
Okay.
that. So
Danny Duggan was sponsored.
He was sponsored by Wet Dreams and Seven Shores. Remember them?
Yeah.
So I had a bit to do with Seven Shores because they were based in WA at the time. But his sister was married to a guy called, what's his name? He's a jockey, Troy Jackman, I think his name was.
Okay.
So he's one of the top jockeys in Australia, all right? And horse racing in Mauritius is their biggest sport.
Is it?
It is massive over
Okay,
there. So
right.
there's 1 million people in Mauritius at that stage, 1 million people. 50,000 of them turn up for a horse racing event. It's that packed that they have to jump to see. So the whole crowd is jumping so they can watch the horse race, right? And Troy's riding this horse that only had one eye, and it had won 8 of its 9 races and got second in the other one, right? So and the guy that got Mauritius, it's an independence from France, also had one eye. This was back in the 60s or 70s. So this horse...
Where is this story
horse
going?
was far lap to these guys, right?
Right, yeah.
To the Mauritians, right? And you could bet on it, but it was like you could bet on pay $100, you'd get $1 back.
Yeah.
There was that longer odds, right? And he's riding...
Shorter odds.
Troy Jackman's riding this horse in the biggest race of the year. Right? Halfway through the race, he ends up going over the front of the horse.
Oh.
And there's riots.
No way.
Right. And they're showing, because I interviewed Troy later on when I got back to Australia. So this is just before we went over. And he's saying, look, if I want a horse to lose, there's a lot better ways of doing it than actually jumping underneath the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't deliberate.
Yeah.
But he lost, the horse lost. Every single person, 50,000 people there, basically all bet at least a few pesos or whatever their thing was on that horse.
Yeah.
So they're going nuts.
Yeah.
So he's had to be rushed out of the country.
Yeah.
Straight away. And we're due to rock up a week later or a few days later. And so we're like, what the F do we do? And we're like, oh, well, I guess we're just going to go. And I remember we actually drove past their house, like there's armed guards standing outside the house and all that sort of stuff. But we had no money, but we had to try and find a way of still doing this surf trip, you know. And we had run-ins with the white shorts over there, the Mauritius version of the black shorts.
Yeah.
The difference with the white shorts at that time was they couldn't surf.
Yeah.
And they just didn't want you in the water full stop.
Yep.
So we would be paddling out. We wouldn't even have a camera. We'd be just paddling out at surf spot and get sent in. It was a really rough time. I still was able to do I did do a little story for tracks on it, got a couple of shots. We got one day at Tamarin, which was really special to actually surf that wave. But we also met 3 brothers who ended up looking after us. And they were amazing guys. They were from South Africa. And they were all in the water when one of the brothers' girlfriends got attacked by a shark this was in South Africa or in Tanzania, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And she, at the time, was the only person in the world to ever survive a shark attack that involved the rupturing of the femoral artery.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I did a story, I did an interview with them one night. We did a story for tracks. They had photos because she lost a leg in the end.
Yeah.
It was an amazing story because the youngest brother went straight to shore to call for help. The oldest, the middle brother, the boyfriend, had hold of the nose of her surfboard and was paddling all 3 of them in because the oldest brother had his thumb up the femoral artery, clamping it to the bone, just his hand was in the wound.
Yep.
And then they got into the shore break. They lost her in the shore break.
Oh, fuck.
They kind of looked at each other and went, oh, fuck, we tried. And then someone saw her hair and grabbed her out by the hair. They put her on the beach so all the blood ran to her head, so the leg was, up the beach. And they did all these things right that meant that she actually survived.
Crazy.
Wow.
So that was a really amazing, part of that thing. So it ended up being an incredible trip, but it started off so bizarre with that whole thing with the horse racing and all of that kind of stuff.
Pretty bizarre trip all round, really.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So,
What a trip.
yeah. I remember the other one that was pretty cool was that the first trip I did to Cloud 9, which was with Dave McKinley from Cronulla. He ended up winning. That was one of the very first times I had that comp over there. He ended up winning it. And him and I and Steve Nola were, so he was sponsored by Seven Shores at that stage, and Seven Shores was still sponsoring Stuart Cadden. Remember him? Backhand.
Yeah.
Backhand.
He had some land over there, huh?
Yeah. He literally lived right at Cloud 9.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to go and stay with him. And at that stage, to get to Cloud 9, we flew to Singapore. We lost Steve Nola at Singapore because he didn't have enough time on his visa. So we left on his passport. So we left him there, and Dave McKinley and I kept going. Steve caught up with us later. And we we flew to Singapore to Manila to Cebu, so 3 flights, then an overnight ferry, and then a 6-hour ferry, and then a bus ride to get to Cloud 9. So
Hectic.
It was planes, trains, and automobiles. Couple of days. We were so stuffed, and we've got to Stuart Cadden's place to find out that he'd got dengue fever and was back in Australia. And we're looking at each other going, what the fuck do we do? We've got nowhere to stay. We've got no money. We're going, fuck, And so we're walking back along the beach back towards Cloud 9, and out of the jungle we hear this voice, and Dave McKinley's nickname was Speg, and we just hear this voice, Speg, is that you? And it was this chick that he'd gone to school with.
No way.
Just happened to be living in the jungle at Cloud 9, happened to be dating the guy that made the trophy for the competition.
No way.
And so we were actually able to stay with them for a little while. So it was that whole thing, the more you travel, the more you realise that the world's really small. It was so bizarre.
The surfing world
or
is
any
small.
world, but but you travel, you meet people who somehow know people. It was so bizarre that we heard that voice come out of the jungle. It literally was a voice out of the jungle. We ended up sleeping on. They gave us this bit of foam to sleep on, right? So they got no money. They've got almost no power. So there's no fans, no air conditioning or whatever. And we just had this bit of foam. So there's no covering of the foam or anything. It's literally a bit of foam. We're sleeping head to toe, him and I, on this mat, on this bit of foam. It was so manky and so shit, and because of the dengue fever and that, like we're wearing long sleeve shirts, long pants, head to toe, and I'm lying there and something's going on, and I'm thinking, what are you doing, Speg? You know, like there's this movement next to me.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck's going on? You know, and I've looked. And it's their little dog. It had its ass on the foam because it had like worms. You know when they get an itchy ass? No. And it's just dragging its ass up the foam.
In between you two.
Between me and Steve. Like, you know, and I, like from that point on, anywhere I've slept in my life, people go, oh, it's not much. And I'm like, it's fine.
It's better than
cool.
the dengue-induced, sweaty, malarial,
fucking dog
frosted dog ass, tropical foam mattress.
Yeah.
Get up there and squeeze those things, mate.
Oh, it was hectic.
Oh man,
it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, so they're those stories.
There's a couple of good ones.
Love it.
People love to hear the bad stories.
That's what I always say. Like, no one wants to hear about how it all went right.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I've spent a fair bit. I've actually lived at Nalu for more than 3 years of my life. All up.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I've done quite a few full seasons and that. So that's it's my spiritual home.
Yep.
So I've had a lot of good times there.
Yeah. So if you were to say your best surf trips where everything is working nice, it's probably there.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I'm not the greatest surfer. So Toomeys was always, like proper Toomeys was always a bit too much for me.
Oh, it's hectic. It's too much for most
there,
people.
But
more people should realise that it's too much for them.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's you know, that's where I've had kind of the good times, like sort of, you know, best sort of couple of barrels. I had one at Centres, I had one at Bluff, I had one over in at Strady.
Oh yeah,
one of the three that stick in my brain.
Strady?
Yeah, South Strady.
Was it a step off or paddle?
No, paddle. Yeah. Just
thought you might have had a few favours from shooting a few pros or something.
Old man Johnny Crake towed me into a couple of waves at a beachy south of Kalbarri. That's the only time we've actually utilised a jet ski.
Yep.
Other than hopping on the back with the boys going down to the right to Black Rainbow. I'm going to keep saying Black Rainbow because
good.
To me, it's Black Rainbow.
Yeah, that's way better. No.
They'd be. And as I said, with the motocross, you know, I had some situations where I had to call in helicopters and stuff. They were pretty heavy.
Yep.
And so many other times I scraped them off ramps and took them to hospital.
Yeah.
You know, punctured lungs, broken this, broken that, whatever. Like it. It was a pretty constant thing. You know, it's just what they do is just sooner or later, you know, your number's up. It's not like surfing. Fortunately, we don't hit the reef much
much. For sure.
But for every time they crash, they're hitting the reef.
Well, that's why I've always thought skating is so gnarly because if you fall, it's 100% guaranteed you're hitting the concrete. Whereas when we fall, it's like, you know, 50-50 or probably not even that. You know, you hit the reef because you got that water buffer there. Mate, speaking of wipeouts, obviously you've told us about some pretty gnarly ones in the FMX world. What's one of the worst wipeouts that you've witnessed in the surfing realm as a filmer or as just paddling around?
Well, and then also the one give us Alfie would, you know,
from the helicopter.
That wasn't even, and one of the reasons it was so heavy because Alfie had some. It messed with him for a little while because the difference for him in that particular situation is that he wasn't on a wave, you know, so you get that adrenaline rush of taking off on a wave, you wipe out or whatever. And then so part of when you're getting tossed around underwater, you're still kind of reliving what's going on. So I think it helps you deal with it. But for him on that particular situation, you know, they're just on a jet ski and they get shit mixed. So that was a pretty intense one. Surfing wise, I mean, as I said, I carted Carl to hospital, split his hand open. There was this chick at Budgie one day. I don't know what. I know what happened. The guys were trying to impress her. They've taken her down there. She's got this big old single fin, so there's no way she should have been out at Budgie. And she's ripped that fin off the board with a leg.
Ooh.
And like a massive gash. Like I just turned up on the beach, and all the boys are like, "Well, we want to go surfing." You know, she's there with like this massive thing. Like a whole bunch of stitches, internal and external, and they're all kind of just like, "Well, we're obviously getting no action now." So we don't want to know ya.
She'll be right.
Yeah, she'll be right, kind of thing. So I had to take her to hospital.
Really?
Well, the other thing was that was at the stage where you could drive to Budgie.
Oh, okay.
So I'd driven down there, they'd walked down.
Oh, gotcha.
So
I was going to say,
like,
that's pretty extreme for them to drag her out. You
but
turn
the thing
up
is,
later.
none of them come with her. They're like, she'll be right with you, won't she?
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
And went surfing.
Oh,
wow. That's hardcore, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
no brownie points there.
Oh, girl or guy, like if you rocked up with someone and did that, like it'd want to be the best ways you've ever seen in
Even if you
life.
if you haven't rocked up, you're still taking.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic.
So-
What about a personal wipeout, Holtzy?
Well, obviously the one that did my hip in the first place in my
Is that the
mid-20s.
Margie's one?
Yeah. So that was funny because I just come off when you're talking about no one wants to hear good stories. I just come off the best run of surf.
We'll still hear it. We'll still hear it, don't worry.
So Speg McKinley had flown over to WA. We got 11 days in kind of April, May down south. You know what? When it just gets on one of those runs.
Yeah, you have those 7-day runs.
We got everything pumping. So, you know, a lot of ways I won't mention, but we also got really good box and just pretty much every good tube on the coast we got in that 11 days. It was amazing. Then we drove straight to Exmouth. We got 3 really good days of Exmouth and then a really big swell hit. We surfed, there's a bombie up there. We surfed 6 to 8 foot. And then we drove straight to Nalu and got 4 days of 6 foot Nalu. And Nalu's never 6 foot for 4 days and pumping, but it was. And Speg actually hurt himself then. He was done, but I stayed up there, had an amazing trip. And then I got down to Margs just as basically the whole of Margaret River went, you know what, we've had a gutful of this.
Yep.
We're going to Nalu. And we got one of those really weird patterns where the low comes through really high. So you get the bottom of the low in Margaret, so it's offshore instead of onshore. You know how we always get the top of the low and it's always onshore, but this one comes through really high. So everyone that went to Nalu, it was horrible onshore.
Yeah, right.
Crap. And Margaret's was like, I'd never seen it like that in my life. The only day I've ever seen it like it was like 6 to 8 foot, northeast wind. The river was flowing. It was almost a northwest swell. It was really west, almost northwest.
Yep.
Because of that really
high low. Yeah.
And it looked like the Bluff. Every wave was just huge pipes.
Really?
Phil Feligli was out there just on his backhand, just getting keg after keg after keg. And I got like 4 or 5 good tubes. I'd already just had one of my best barrels at that I was talking about. I had one at Centres like only a few weeks before.
Yep.
So I was right in that zone and I got some good waves out there. And then, I just got pitched. And as I hit the water, it was like an 8-footer, I suppose. The lip landed on me. And then that was it. I was out of the water for like nearly a year.
Really?
And
was that the pelvis?
Yeah,
The
so
hip?
it was my hip. So it actually came good within a couple of weeks, but then it was still pumping, and I went down to Budgie and surfed like 6 or 8 hours, and then I went down the next day, and I wasn't stretching and stuff, and I did it again. So it was like I properly messed it.
You finished
and
the
then
job.
once I'd done it that second time, it was like, right, you're done, mate.
Yeah.
You know, and even a year later, when I finally was able to get back in the water, it never fully healed. So when it finally went again, about 15 years later, it went. It was done. But I thought it had come good. So that's why it took me so long to get my hips replaced, because I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll heal.
Yeah.
But it gets bone on bone, it's not healing.
Yeah.
There's nothing there to heal. So, so that I had nearly a 2-wave hole down at Nalu at one stage there. That was pretty intense. But as far as impact on my life, it was definitely that one.
Yeah, cool.
That's,
Well, not cool, but cool story.
28 years later, I'm still kind of telling the story, and it's still impacting my life. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mates, we'll probably wrap it up soonish, I guess. You could.
I'm pretty keen to do a couple of Steve Irwins, so we might miss out the Clive Palmers today. I reckon we'll keep it
one
on
thing
the
I did
positive
want to,
side.
I felt like we're coming to the end, mate. Holtzy, obviously, welcome back anytime. I feel like you've got hours more stories.
I'd love to have because I'm a pro surf nuffy. I love watching that shit.
Well, mate, come and join us for any ep, ever, when we're doing a...
Well, T-Bone's sort of caught up with old dad these days, so old surf dad. So maybe Holtzy can come there, third co-host.
You can come in, mate. You're welcome anytime, no doubt.
Just joking, T-Bone. We love you, mate.
But seriously, mate, more the merrier. Yeah, that's it. No, mate, we're anyone like our Mickey Plows, Trevs, and regulars. We got Ant-Man. Like, mate, the door's always open at Shedquarters. It's not a. It's not a. What do you call it?
It's not an exclusive club.
Yeah, exclusive was the word I was after.
It is open for one and all.
Yeah. Well, it's open to people of similar ilk. But mate, before we do wrap it up,
if you're a nuffy, you're not invited.
Yeah, but mate, before we go into the Steves and sort of wrap it up, early in the potty you mentioned a couple of pretty cult-like figures that I don't know well, but maybe we all do. Camel and Buzz.
Yeah.
Murawski. I don't know much about Buzz at all. Maybe I've met him, maybe I haven't. I'm not sure. I've definitely met Camel a couple of times. Everyone in Australia has probably heard of Camel. Give us a crazy Camel story that you've witnessed, because he is a bit of a mythical figure.
Well, I photographed him getting that wave from Sentence through Toomey.
Oh, yeah. That was a pretty crazy
and
wave.
That's the only time I've seen anyone do that properly live. Like, I've gone through on a little wave myself. I've seen other people kind of get ones that go through, but to pull in through dead man's like Camel did on that one, and there is a picture of it on my Instagram if anyone wants to check that out. That was freaking amazing.
Is that the greatest thing you've ever seen any surfer do?
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. I don't even know, especially knowing what he went through, and like way back in the day, Jim Banks tried to do it and ended up cutting himself to like really badly. I've heard stories of Ant-Man's done it. I know that there's guys that do it, and these days it seems like Chipper does it all the time.
Yes, I think Chippo had a clip of it just in his most recent edit, didn't it?
Yeah.
Mate, I filmed Ant-Man doing it, and when he did it, he told me it was the best wave he'd ever had there in the 18 years, and it was the single greatest thing I've seen done in surfing. And there's a long story behind it in detail that I won't tell now because I want your stories, but yeah, it's an impressive feat when done.
Yeah.
Because to do it properly, it needs to be like 10 foot. And Camel's was easy.
Look, I stopped, and it's on me because it's digital. But because I learnt with slide film, and like I said, it's dull every time you hit the trigger.
Yep.
You kind of make that judgment. Do you want to waste any more money hitting the trigger? And so that's still with me now. And so I could have kept taking that, but I'm like, you
didn't shoot it. You didn't back him.
I shot him pulling in.
Yeah, but you didn't back him.
I didn't back him. No, I didn't back him. So that's on me. And like I said, that's why. It's because I still had that ingrained in my head.
Yeah.
He wasn't making that thing.
No
fucking way. He was pulling in or close out. Yeah.
He was deep and it was big.
So absolutely that. I did when he first started living in the jungle at G-Land, like literally living in the jungle. I did the first story on him about that for tracks. I think he was living in the jungle, and they kind of went, "Well, fuck, come and help us out at the whichever one he worked at."
Yep.
And so he kind of got a job there. But I think for a while he was literally living in the jungle.
Fishing
and so I did a story on him for tracks back in the day. That was kind of his, So that was really cool to sit down with him. I did a lot of really, I did a really cool one with Tony Hardy. I know things went pear-shaped for him, but, he had an amazing story how he decided he wanted to visit his brother somewhere on the East Coast, and just started walking.
From Muggies.
I'm going to go visit my brother. He's got no money. He's got no food, nothing. He just starts walking.
Sounds a bit like Forrest Gump.
Yeah, or it's like proper Forrest
similar,
Gump.
wasn't
And
he?
living out of bins and stuff, like just going through bins and whatever. And he got himself pretty much. He didn't walk all the way. He hitched some of it, but 2 years later, he got where he was going.
Took him 2 years.
And and he literally got arrested in that town for vagrancy or something as he got there. Like,
did he take a surfboard or not?
No, he wasn't. He was going. That's when he sort of. I think some of those mental issues had been sort
building
or whatever, and he just started walking or whatever. I'm not fully dialed into that, but it was a great story. I sat around with all the Hardys at the time, and sort of had that chat. So that was really cool as far as that sort of stuff goes. So Buzz was a really unique individual. I've nearly drowned like 5 times in my life.
Really?
Maybe even 6 times. He actually saved me in one of those times.
Was it? You can tell us that one.
Well, I got my first time ever at Southsides. It was too big and I wasn't ready for it, but I got my leggy wrapped around a bommie.
Ooh.
Those ones happen and you can't even get to your leg.
Yeah.
You just, and luckily it broke right as I was pretty much done.
Yeah.
And then Buzz, he was only like a tiny little kid. He was like, and he dragged me in sort of thing. So, he saved my bacon back then.
That's cool.
But yeah, like they were really, and both of those two guys were at one stage. They were sort of, I think they won like a state schoolboy. No, a schoolboys, a national schoolboys or something. They were like right there, and then they were walking home on Caves Road and got hit by a car.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Memory's a bit hazy on those, but they were both out for a long time.
Really?
Buzz was kind of I think kind of in a way is part of the reason Taj got so good. He was a couple of years older than Taj and was leading the charge there for a while.
Okay.
And then he had that. Him and Camel both got hurt pretty bad.
Wow.
And that slowed them both down and
changed their trajectory in life, you think?
Yeah, because Buzz was super talented.
Wow. Is he still around?
Yeah, lives up in Exmouth, still surfs a bit. I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of those really, you can see why him and Camel were good mates because they've both kind of got that real kind of eclectic, unique thing going on, like a way of looking at life and talking. They've got their own language and the whole thing. Yeah, they're pretty interesting characters for sure. Yeah. So that's what I filmed. You had all the pros. You had Jake and Taj, and I had all these.
You got lucky, man.
Not really, man. I was just rocking up with. I don't know. I was just filming anyone.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't really teeing up with them that much. It was just I was just turning up to spots and they were there.
Yeah.
Man, I was just filming anyone on the day who packed a good pit. I was mate. On that note, just a shout out, there is a movie night coming out at Cheeky Monkey Brewery on Caves Road. The Caves Road restaurant, Jezza Forest, is putting together a bit of a community surf video night that sounds like it's almost a lubrication to 25 years on. It's in conjunction with Tom Jennings, and it's about because obviously Jez has made a couple of epic edits, and while sifting through that footage on those same days, Tom, Geno, and whoever's got all these random underground dudes getting help hits, and he's like, let's put it together and have a bit of have a night. And I teed it up with put him in touch with the guys at Cheeky Monkey, and they're going to have a night and have bands, and that's all coming up pretty soon. So keep your ears peeled for that one as well.
There's a couple of things coming up for us as well, which I'll mention later on, but keep your ears peeled for some Barrel Surf Podcast live events and a couple of film releases and stuff. We'll get into that a bit later. Now, we do need to wrap this up pretty quickly because we're about to run out of storage on the second card. But I do want to jump into the Steve Evans salutes.
Let's just get Holtzy to give us a Steve then.
Right about now.
I don't know if I've got anything positive to really put. I tell you what, I'll turn a positive into a negative into a positive, whatever.
No, Steve Irwin, salute, double thumbs up.
Yeah.
We're not going Clives.
Yeah, to everyone fighting the Smiths Beach.
Yeah, cool.
Thing,
Yeah.
because I used to spend a bit of time in that caravan park back in the day. I can remember smoking 500 leaf bongs in a night at one stage, and it was such a cool thing for us to do, to be able to stay at that caravan park. And then they went, nah, stuff you, we're going to have that whole development, but you can still stay in the caravan park. Well, obviously, you can't have that nice little tent thing like you could back then. And to me, this is just another step on it, on doing that. The same sort of thing. They're telling you one thing, it'll be okay. It's just this. Yeah. But, whatever. Yeah. So to everyone that's out there making that, to trying to fight that fight, that's definitely my salute.
Cool.
Yeah, sick. Keep fighting the good fight, everyone. It's an ongoing battle. Adzy, you got something, mates?
Oh no, let's leave it in Holtzy's corner, I reckon, for the minute. I reckon we'll save all our jazz for maybe a little you mean T-Bone wrap up.
I do want to do a quick one though, and that is to the firefighters that did an incredible job a few weeks back at the Dunsborough fires.
That's pretty radical, eh?
Incredible job there. What else have you got, Holtzy?
I don't know. I think just to everyone out there that's following their dreams, keep doing it. Great to listen to Tom Geno talking about how he just decided when he was a kid that he wanted to be a surf film guy and made it happen. It's such a hard thing to do. Everything, everyone, they all just want you to do the 9 to 5 thing, and it takes some real courage to go, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I really want to do something different with my life. And so that's what I'm going to do. And it's so difficult to do. And it's so hard to keep sticking with it when you've got no money and everything's going against you. And, to anyone out there that's trying to follow their dreams, just keep doing it. Keep sacking up, keep trying. I've been knocked back so many times. Like I said, got $500 in my bank right now. I've never been happier. I've had 2 of the best years of my life the last 2 years, hands down. Just by chucking the job in and going surfing and writing a book. Do it, chase it, follow it. And if you're injured, get it fixed, have that op, do the rehab. All of that stuff. That's all I can say, really.
Mate, that's awesome. Great words to finish it up.
It's a great little sign off, and I would like to thank Leith Holtzman for joining us on Barrel Surf Podcast. Can't wait to read your book, mate.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. We're
going to promo the shit out of that on the Instagram and all the rest of it, and it's it's going to be epic. Thanks for joining us, mate. It's been
mate, there's no doubt you're coming back.
You're coming
back. Oh, absolutely, anytime. I'd love to. I mean, talking's my favourite thing.
Perfect. You can take the pressure off me. Take some of the heat off me. Yeah. Awesome, mate. And we'll be back soon with some sort of wrap up of some random events and maybe Holtzy will be here.
We got Portugal on at the moment. It's just about to finish up. Jack Robbo's just lost, but
has he?
No!
Thank you for joining us on Barrel Surf Podcast. I've been
to Yago?
Yeah, Tiago.
Damn, I'm blaming his dad.
Yeah, come on,
Leandro. It's too complicated,
conspiracy.
Mate. Conspiracy, mate.
How
can that even work?
I've been Namu, Adzy's been Adzy, and Leith Holtzman has been Leith Holtzman.
He's been a homegrown maniac is what he's been.
Thanks for joining us on Barrel Surf Podcast, and we'll catch you next time.